What's up, fam? It's your man, Louie T. Welcome to the command post. Post up and take command. You know what it is. Got a lot to talk about tonight. This team is hilarious, and I love them anyway, despite their shortcomings. But, man, they just don't seem to be able to get anything right. So the first thing I want to talk about tonight, and what's up to everyone out there? Let me give a shout out to the first person in the comment section. Ainsley Chance, excuse me. Shout out to Ainsley. Thank you for being the first in the comment section. What's going on, Ainsley Chance? All right, so this team hasn't even been the Washington Commanders for an entire month yet, and they were already mired in controversy surrounding the crest. Okay, someone had brought this to my attention. I think it was maybe like 3 or 4 days after they had revealed the name and rolled out the logo and the crest and all the jerseys and everything. And someone had said, you know what? What's up with the crest and the dates on the crest for the championships that we've won? And I said, yeah, that's dumb. That doesn't make any sense. No one recognizes the 91 championship team as 1992. Even though, and all I told him was that, look, those are the actual years in which those championships were won. But no one refers to the 82 championship as the 83. We all know the 83 team actually was better than the 82 team, but they got destroyed in the Super Bowl by the Raiders. So we don't credit the 83 Redskins for anything other than getting back to the Super Bowl for a second consecutive year, but they got trounced 38-9 by Marcus Allen and the Los Angeles Raiders. So it's not the 83 Redskins, it's the 82 Redskins. It's not the 92 Redskins, it's the 91 Redskins, so forth and so forth. So that was a point of contention with fans. And first of all, whose genius idea was it to do that in the first place? Like, who was out there saying, well, we actually won? Like, I don't know who thought that was a good idea. I'm pretty sure Doug Williams wasn't like, hey, we actually won the Super Bowl in 88, in January of 88. So technically you could I'm pretty sure Doug Williams was like, that's the 87 team. Like, they didn't talk to anybody that was actually involved with the team. This had to be like a Jason Wright thing. That's how I view this. Like, this had to be a Jason Wright thing where he's being literal here, because who in whose right mind thinks that that's the right thing to do? Anyway, long story short, they fixed the crest. It should not have been a problem in the first place. Okay, it should not have been an issue. They should have gotten it right the first time. But they tried to get Roman numerals for the Super Bowls that they won, and the NFL was like, no, we're not giving you credit. We're not giving you the clearance to do that. Just put the right dates up there. And they finally, relented and said, okay, you got me. Hands up. We'll put the right dates up there. And they like, why was that an issue? Like, they can't even get the smallest, simplest things right. Anyway, so Crest Gate is behind us, okay? It's fixed. No more talk about the crest. There was a Washington Post article that recently came out that had a poll in it that residents of the DMV area, specifically in Washington, D.C., were asked about, how they felt about the name. And 50% said that they really didn't like the name. I'm not shocked by that. That's right around what I was expecting to hear. A lot of people were like, oh, my God, no one can stand the name. I'm like, oh, what did you think they were going to just fall in love automatically with Commanders? This is not a great name. I told you the name was whatever to me. I never was really that enamored with whatever the name was going to be. I said, they're not going to name the team something ridiculous. Okay. The Commanders isn't ridiculous. It's just not cool. And that's okay. We'll get used to it. That's what we do over time with things. Like Washington football team, when we first had that name, we're like, this is the dumbest thing ever. 2 years later, a lot of you are like, yo, we could just leave it as Washington football team. I don't even care. It's fine. Just leave it alone. Like that, eventually Commanders will be fine. But it's fresh now. It's new. And it's not Redskins. And it's not something like Red Wolves that I thought would have been the majority, which is what people wanted. And so, yeah, Commanders is pretty lame. When in the grand scheme of things, who cares? I don't care. Okay, we're the Commanders. So I think that'll blow over. But that was a topic of discussion throughout the week. Also, the two main topics I want to get to tonight are Ron Rivera and what he had to say. So Ben Standig had a nice article in The Athletic talking to Ron Rivera. He had a one-on-one with Ron Rivera in which Rivera was pretty candid. And this is the thing, and I tell you this all the time, and believe it to be true, okay? And I abide by this wholeheartedly. However, when it comes to Ron Rivera, I do somewhat slacken my stance here. But you know, this is lion season. Believe half of what you see, none of what you hear, even if it's spat by me, your man Louie T. You know the rules to the game and play. However, when Ron speaks, I listen because I told you Ron is a transparent individual, okay? Wears his emotions on his sleeve. He says how he feels, and he means what he says. So when Ron speaks, I tend to listen. So Ron had some very interesting things to say, and I think I love to draw inferences. It's one of my favorite things to do, okay? You give me breadcrumbs, I make a full bread pudding out of it, okay? So Ron is dropping breadcrumbs. I'm going to explain to you what I've gathered from the breadcrumbs that have been dropped. So we'll talk about the quarterback position and what Ron Rivera had to say. And also, we'll talk about Terry McLaurin's contract, what it will look like, and what will essentially have to happen for it to get done expeditiously. Okay, so that's something else that I want to talk about because I've been listening to a number of people talk about Terry's situation, the numbers, what it should look like, and what Terry will ultimately be doing as he waits for this contract to negotiations to really kick off. So we'll talk about that tonight. We'll talk about Landon Collins. Looks like Landon Collins' days in Washington could be numbered. Do not count Landon Collins out quite yet, but it seems as if Landon Collins could be on the outs. We'll talk about him. We'll talk about Brandon Sheriff. I think he's as good as gone. And you know what? Good riddance. I love me some Brandon Sheriff, but the minute that man hit free agency the first time and got the franchise tag, he was one step closer to being out of the door, similar to Kirk Cousins. I mean, this is Kirk Cousins all over again. So as far as I'm concerned, we've paid him enough money, and now I don't want to pay him the $16-17 million it's going to take per year to keep him in Washington. I'd much rather let him get that bread elsewhere. Love what he's done with us. Don't think he's going to be a Hall of Fame player. I'd hate if he turns into a Hall of Famer. All of a sudden, he doesn't get injured anymore, and he starts to play 17 games every year, and he's an All-Pro 3 more times. He could eventually find his way to Canton, and that would be the second offensive lineman that we've drafted here that we allow to leave and then complete a Hall of Fame career and then probably go into Canton, not as a Washington Commander. Champ Bailey also did it. Started his career here, but so much of his career was played in Denver that that really doesn't count. But you could see where that was trending when he got traded for Clinton Portis. Anyway, I digress. So we'll talk about all of that and then some on today's show. And you guys are going to also be a part of the festivities today. So look forward to chopping it up with you guys. Let's jump into the meat and potatoes of what I want to discuss tonight. So let's start with Ron Rivera and the breadcrumbs that he's dropping. I really told you Ron is a guy that, so let me first say this. We don't do a very good job of keeping things under wraps around these parts. I mean, the whole name situation, that cat was out of the bag long before we got to February 2nd. But there's no, right or wrong way to go about this. Although you could probably find most people in the camp of, hey, keep your mouth shut in terms of wanting a quarterback. No one needs to know truly how desperate you are. Like, for instance, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're reeling right now without Tom Brady. Blaine Gabbert is the quote unquote penciled in starter. Now they're going to erase his name. That's why it's in pencil. They're not writing his name in pen or magic marker. All right. And behind him is going to be a second-year quarterback in Kyle Trask, who they spent a draft pick on last year, backing him up. They have to do something. They're not going into the season next year with Blaine Gabbert as their quarterback. The Pittsburgh Steelers are in quite the conundrum, okay? They're not looking to start Mason Rudolph at quarterback. And even if they are thinking about doing that, that's not a smart move. They know better than that, but they're not showing anybody that they're sweating, okay? The Indianapolis Colts are looking around like, man, we really want to get from under this Carson Wentz deal. You know, we gave up some picks. We're going to have a lot of dead cap that we're going to have to eat if we decide to part ways with him. It might just be better off if we just hold on to him for one more year, but it's just so excruciating and maddening that this guy is on the roster and I have to look at his face every day because he didn't want to get vaccinated and he stunk it up at the end of the season and we didn't make the playoffs and we lost to a Jacksonville Jaguars team that had nothing to play for. I want him out of my building. However, they're not sweating, even if they decide to move on from Carson Wentz. I could go on and on and on with all the teams that need quarterbacks but aren't sweating. Yet, here we are parading around every chance we get, letting anybody that has a microphone or a pencil or a recorder in hand, letting them know that we are in the market for a quarterback and we are willing to spend any price and swing as big as we need to get a quarterback here in Washington. Now, again, there's no right or wrong way to do this. You could keep quiet like the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or you can be as loud and boisterous as we have been throughout this process. Ron Rivera, every time someone asks him about the quarterback position, Ron pretty much says, hey, we got to do something, okay? And the latest Ron Rivera comment to me is, and here I am, I'm drawing inferences, all right? I'm connecting dots that don't necessarily connect. Follow me here as we go along, right? So in his interview with Ben Standing, Ron Rivera essentially said that we will have 2 veterans and a rookie on the roster, okay? Now, are you following me? So one veteran is going to be Taylor Heineke, right? So presumably we're going to add a veteran, which I told you guys as much, and you guys are smart enough to know how this is going to work. They're going to add a veteran, okay, via free agency, one of the people that you don't want, one of these quarterbacks that you want no parts of, Mitchell Trubisky, Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston, one of those types of guys, Teddy Bridgewater, one of those guys will be a veteran and they'll be here. Just like last year when we didn't want any parts. I can't speak for you. I didn't want any parts of Ryan Fitzpatrick. And what did? They made a beeline for Ryan Fitzpatrick once they couldn't get their hands on Matthew Stafford. So what's going to happen this year is they're going to swing for the fences. And after they strike out everywhere, which is what I essentially think is going to happen now, there's still an outside chance that Russell Wilson ends up here. It's a very small, minute chance. And this is the thing, Russ can scrub his social media clean of Seattle, just like Kyler Murray scrubbed his social media clean of Arizona. Both of those guys will be in their current locales when the season gets kicked off, okay? When we get to training camp, Kyler Murray will report for duty with the Arizona Cardinals. He wants a new contract. He'll get it eventually. Maybe not now. Maybe not when he wants it. He'll get it, though. He's not going anywhere. He's not going to be traded. He'll be an Arizona Cardinal. I think the same thing is going to happen with Russell Wilson. It doesn't make any sense for the Seattle Seahawks to trade Russell Wilson unless Russell Wilson says, I'm not playing for you, trade me, and he's not going to do that, okay? So I don't see Seattle all of a sudden deciding, you know what, now's the right time to trade Russell Wilson for 3 first-round picks, especially in a draft where you're not going to be able to replace him right away with a quarterback. I just don't see Seattle doing that unless they trade him somewhere where they'll get a quarterback in return that they like. I just don't see. So let's go with this assumption. Let's say that Aaron Rodgers retires, right? Now the Packers have a conundrum on their hands. They say to themselves, hey, we love Jordan Love, or do you really? They could say, hey, you know what? We don't love the kid as much as we thought. Tell you what, we'll give you 2 first-rounders and Jordan Love. You give us Russell Wilson, we'll call it even. That's the only way I see Seattle moving on from Russell Wilson, is if they can immediately get a guy to replace him that they feel confident in. Other than that, it doesn't make any sense. This is not the draft to decide, I don't want Russell Wilson anymore. Let's trade him away, get a few first-round picks this year, next year, year after that, and let's figure out the quarterback position as we go. That doesn't make any sense. So I said all of that to say this. We're going to swing for the fences like we did last year with Matthew Stafford. We're going to miss like we did last year with Matthew Stafford. And then we're going to come back to reality. And I feel like Ron's already done this. Why do I say that? Ron said there will be 3 quarterbacks essentially on the roster, 2 veterans, 1 rookie. Okay. Taylor Heineke is one of those veterans. So he's already spoken for one of the veteran spots. They're going to add another veteran in free agency. I'm going to tell you guys, and if you follow me on the podcast, if you watched the podcast yesterday, then you know what I'm already going to say as to who I think that one veteran quarterback is going to be and why. I'm going to say it again today on the show because not everyone watched the podcast episode yesterday. So I'll tell you who that other veteran quarterback more likely than not is going to be a little bit later on in the show. And then a rookie, right? If are you following me? Continue to follow me. All right. If you're not following me, stop me. I can go back. I can rewind. And I can spit it back out again to keep you guys on pace with me. So 2 veterans, 1 rookie. If you're getting your hands on Derek Carr, if you're getting your hands on Russell Wilson, if you're getting your hands on Deshaun Watson, if you're getting your hands on an Aaron Rodgers, would there be a rookie on this roster at the quarterback position? You tell me. Does that make any sense psychologically? You go out and you get one of the best quarterbacks in football, if it's Rodgers or it's Russell Wilson, or you go get a really good quarterback in Derek Carr, and you're going to go and get a rookie too? Where's the psychological sense in that? There isn't any. If you think there is, you need to wash your face and get your mind right. So what Ron essentially is telling you is, hey, already reached out to Seattle, slapped me on the wrist, told me no. Okay, that's a no. Reached out to Green Bay, they slapped me on the wrist, told me that's a no. Reached out to Deshaun Watson, slapped me on the wrist, that's a no. Okay, so all the big boys have pretty much slapped me on the wrist, told me that's a no. Reached out to the Raiders, Derek Carr, slapped me on the wrist, that's a no. So pretty much all of the teams with quarterbacks that we would like to pursue has already told Ron, no, we're not interested. Thanks, but no thanks. So Ron has already programmed his mind into thinking, okay, those avenues have been pursued. We struck out. Now we got to go to plan B, which is one of these veterans, and draft a guy. And now we've got a cupboard stock full of quarterbacks, a guy that we don't plan on playing right away, because more likely than not, I don't think they're taking a guy at 11. I think they're going to take a guy in the second round. Now, I'm not saying they're going to be static and not move in the second round and just take whatever falls to them. I think it is very possible that they could package up picks and move up in the second round or potentially into the late portion of the first round, the latter half of the first round to get a guy. But I don't see them spending 11 unless there's a guy there that they love and that guy just happens to fall to them. I don't see them trading up to get a guy. I don't see them, having someone fall in their lap, because as we know with the quarterbacks, and I've said this a million times and I'll say it a million more, the quarterback position gets pushed up. It does not get pushed down. It does not stay static. It gets pushed up because everyone is looking for their guy. And we all know the quarterback position is a supplies while it is supplies lasting. We all know that is a position that is while supplies last. Okay, so you have to get yours while supplies last. Same thing with left tackle. Well, really just the tackle position in general now. Left, right, it's really hard to differentiate between the two anymore. But tackles fly off the board just like quarterbacks do. And everybody's supplies, get it while supplies last. So everyone's going to be reaching for theirs. Let me get mine before they're all gone. And so I don't see a guy that they love magically just falling to them at 11. If they want someone specifically, they got to go up and get him. So in my mind, Ron is telling us we're going to have 3 quarterbacks on the roster, 2 veterans, 1 rookie. If you were getting one of the big name quarterbacks, there would be no rookie on the roster. Okay, it would just be 2 veterans. That big name quarterback and Taylor Heineke. There would be no need for a third quarterback in the form of a rookie. That wouldn't exist. The need, and furthermore, peep game on this. Furthermore, if you were to get one of those big name quarterbacks, how do you think you would acquire that guy? You're not getting him for free. You're not going to have a first round pick this year. You probably wouldn't even have a second round pick this year. Where would you get a rookie? Out of thin air? Would you be drafting a guy in day 3? Well, who wants a day 3 quarterback anyway? Like that guy, if you draft a day 3 quarterback, he's going to end up being, what was the kid we drafted from Indiana that played here for a number of years and then went to Philadelphia, and he helped us clinch the NFC East in 2020. Nate Sudfeld. That's his damn name. You draft a day 3 quarterback, he's Nate Sudfeld. Okay. We don't want that. Okay. You draft a day 3 quarterback, even though he was undrafted. It's the kid from Colorado that was here for like 2-3 years. All right. You don't want that. Trust me. Okay. So we're not looking for a day 3 quarterback. It's day 1 or day 2 or else. That's it. So in my mind, Ron said 3 quarterbacks, 2 veterans, 1 rookie, because he knows we're not giving up our first round pick or second round pick because we're not getting one of those big name quarterbacks. And he also knows we're not getting one of those guys. So you're going to have to get a veteran, because none of these guys that are going to be available in this veteran market, they're truly the best you can hope for is one of them morphs into Ryan Tannehill. Okay. And even that isn't good enough, as the Titans have found out. Even that's not good enough to win you a Super Bowl. The Titans put everything around him possible. They went and got Julio Jones, even though he wasn't able to stay healthy. They had A.J. Brown. They had Derrick Henry. They got this crazy offensive line that's opening up these big-ass holes. The defense was playing out of their minds, and he still managed to throw 3 interceptions and cost them the game. So at some point, you're going to realize that even this guy, who's a retread, who's had this rebirth of a career, isn't good enough to get us where we ultimately want to go. So Ron's not going to put all his eggs in that basket, which is why he has the rookie on the roster. And so that tells me Ron is more likely than not going to have them sign a free agent quarterback. Most likely that free agent quarterback isn't going to be Teddy Bridgewater. It's probably not going to be Marcus Mariota. It's not going to be Teddy Bridgewater. It's not going to be any of these guys that you think it could be. I think it's ultimately going to be Mitchell Trubisky. Here's why. I've read several articles just in the last 2 weeks with Buffalo Bills players and coaches alike ranting and raving about how Mitchell Trubisky is ready for an opportunity. This guy is mentally sharp. He's very athletic. He had a great opportunity to sit behind Josh Allen, and he's ready for his second act. And I've been reading this over and over and over again, and the Bills continue to endorse him over and over and over again. And now Ron, who trusts a lot of those guys out in Buffalo. Why? Because he has a working relationship with a lot of them from his days in Carolina. So Ron trusts these guys. Come on, coaches talk. All right. It's the offseason. They get together. They play golf together. They're going to meet up with each other in Indy for the combine. They're going to speak again. And Ron's going to get a good feel for, maybe this Mitchell Trubisky kid does deserve an opportunity. And then Ron's going to sit down. He's going to convince himself. He went to the playoffs 2 times in 3 years. Won the division his first year as a starter. All right. Had a down year the second year. Dealt with some injuries, things of that nature. Comes back the third year. Helps lead the Bears. Even when he was benched, helps lead them back to the playoffs again. He's going to brainwash himself into thinking, you know what? This Mitchell Trubisky's gotten a bad rap, and I think he's ready for another opportunity. And so I think the guy that ultimately ends up here as the veteran is Mitchell Trubisky, and then they'll add a rookie. Don't ask me who that rookie quarterback is, because, again, the draft is weird and funky, and things happen. Teams start reaching and grabbing, and next thing you know, the Steelers have come up and gotten their guy. And then all of a sudden, the Saints, you didn't think they were going to do anything. They've come up and grabbed somebody. And now all of a sudden, you look around and there are 2 quarterbacks left, and none of them are mobile. You know what I'm saying? There's 2 guys that are just sitting ducks, essentially. And Ron has made it abundantly clear. That's another thing that Mitchell Trubisky has on his side is athleticism. Ron has made it abundantly clear that in this division with Dallas and the dogs that they have defensively, including Micah Parsons, and all these guys that can run, the Eagles and their defense and guys that can run there, and the Giants and that defense, we need a mobile quarterback. We don't want a guy that's just standing back there and being a sitting duck. We need a guy that can create off schedule and use his legs as a part of the action if need be. And that guy is Mitchell Trubisky. Now, that guy could be Marcus Mariota, but Ron has also talked about taking injury into consideration. Well, Marcus Mariota, I've already said he's Tyrod Taylor in the regard of injury. You know, when you start talking about injuries, it's not a matter of if Tyrod Taylor is going to get hurt. It's when. It's not a matter of if Marcus Mariota is going to get injured. It's a matter of when. Similar to Brandon Sheriff here in Washington, it's not a matter of if Brandon Sheriff is going to get injured. It's when and for how long is he going to be out. We've come to know that. We've come to grips in terms with that as Washington fans. We know Brandon Sheriff isn't playing a full 16 or 17 game schedule. So it's the same thing with Marcus Mariota. And I think they want to kind of bypass that. So I said all of that to say this. Ron is dropping crumbs. We could believe him or you cannot believe him. It is lying season, by the way. Okay? So if you decide to just swat that away like Dikembe and say, no, not today, I get it. And I'm not mad at you for that. However, Ron, I've said this before, I'll say it again. There hasn't been much lying going on from Ron to us since he's gotten here. You know, Ron was disingenuous a few times early on when he first got here, when he didn't call timeouts at the end of ball games. And we chalked that up to, I can't speak for you, I chalked that up to his cancer and the chemo he was taking. He wasn't in his right mind. It was a tough situation for him, and he got through it. But really since then, we haven't heard any disingenuous moments from Ron. He's been pretty candid. He said how he's felt. And a lot of times when he said something, it's come to fruition. So Ron's telling anybody that has ears, hey, we're swinging for the fences at the quarterback position. And I think he's embedding that in everyone. And I think he thinks he's doing himself a service, but he's actually doing himself a disservice, because what he's doing is, instead of him putting this out there so that the fans know, hey, look, it's the same shit they did when it came to Brandon Sheriff that I told you I didn't like, and it sounded Bruce Allen-esque. I said, I don't need you telling me that you offered him a deal to make him the highest paid guard in the NFL and he turned it down. I don't need you to do that, okay? That's messy. It's unnecessary. I don't need you to do that, okay? I think Ron is doing something because he wants, and that the reason they did that is because they want the fans on their side. Hey, we did all we could do. It's Brandon that didn't want to be here. We wanted him here. He didn't want to be here. We all know Brandon had all the leverage. He had no reason, zero, to sign a contract after you started giving him $16 million and $14 million in 1 year. You know, he had no reason to sign on the dotted line. So I think Ron thinks he's doing himself a favor with the fan base by telling us, hey, we're going to go out here and we're going after all the big name quarterbacks. All right. And if we don't get one, it's not for a lack of trying. We're trying, damn it. What he thinks he's doing and what he's actually doing is two different things. Okay. What he's actually doing is putting batteries in the backs of a lot of these fans. And that when we don't come away with an Aaron Rodgers, or we don't come away with a Deshaun Watson, or we don't come away with a Russell Wilson, or even Derek Carr to a lesser degree, when you actually end up with Mitchell Trubisky, you're going to have a lot of pissed off fans that felt like you promised them a big name quarterback was going to come here and save the day, and this is what you deliver us. So Ron thinks he's doing himself a favor by telling everybody, hey, we are going to go after it hard. We're going to swing big, and we're swinging for the fences. And he thinks that that's going to make the fans say, well, hey, he tried. Ron gave it his best shot. God dang it. He almost got it. He almost pulled it off. No, that's not what's going to happen. You're putting batteries in the backs of these fans, and they're going to be pissed, and they're going to have a pitchfork in one hand and a torch in the other, and they're going to be looking to light your ass up when you show them, hey, I got Mitchell Trubisky, and I got Malik Willis for you. Best I can do. Well, I got Mitchell Trubisky, and I got, Sam Howell. Best I can do. You have a lot of pissed off fans when they look up, and that's the best you could do. So Ron thinks he's doing himself a favor. He's actually doing himself a disservice. He's setting himself up to be the fall guy here. And that's not what you want to do. But in any event, Ron is pretty much telling us, sorry, guys, not coming away with any of those big name quarterbacks that I told you I was going to swing for. I tried. It's just not going to happen. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to get a veteran in free agency, and we're going to add a rookie, and that'll fill out our quarterback room. I can tell you this, unless there is some sort of resurgence here with Mitchell Trubisky, and he turns out to be the guy that the Bears thought he was ultimately going to be, which is why they traded up to number 2 to get him. unless he morphs into that guy somehow, some way, I don't see how this team is any better at the quarterback position with, Mitchell Trubisky. And Mitchell is a guy that I think they're going to have, but it doesn't necessarily have to be Mitchell Trubisky. It could be Marcus Mariota. It could be, Teddy Bridgewater. None of those guys are going to move the needle, okay? Teddy Bridgewater has been on like 3 different teams in the last 3 years, okay? There's a reason for that, okay? And if I'm not mistaken, Teddy Bridgewater has been on like 6 teams, 5 or 6 teams in the last 7 years. Like, there's a reason for that, okay? Because he's Teddy Bridgewater. We already know where that bridge leads. Straight to water. You're going to drown, okay? That's where that bridge leads. Straight to water. That's why his name's Bridgewater, okay? You're going to drown with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback. Ask the Panthers, okay? Ask the Denver Broncos. Your season eventually drowns with Teddy Bridgewater. So it's not just Mitchell Trubisky. It's any of these guys. They're all stopgaps. So then the question becomes, is that rookie that we get any good? I don't know. I wish I had an answer for you. I don't know. And so for me, I then ask myself, if you take a quarterback this year, does that preclude you from getting one next year? And I hope the answer is no. It doesn't stop you from looking, sniffing around. And I would hope they would keep their damn mouth shut so that no one knows what they're thinking, just in case they want to go back channel route, trade up to go get a guy. No one's looking at Washington like, hey, they need a quarterback. Just keep your mouth shut. All right? A wise man once told me, the G's move silent, right? The weak start riots and the G's move silent, okay? We got to stop being the weak and mouthing off and telling everybody what we plan to do. Shh, be a G for once, okay? Be a G for once. Keep your mouth shut and move through the back channels. We'll see what happens, but Ron is essentially telling us, hey, man, here's what we're going to have to do. Like last year, we're going to have to go to plan B. Obviously, Ryan Fitzpatrick was not plan A last year. He was plan B. We're probably going to have to go to plan B again this year. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Ron also talked about 2 guys in particular in their contractual situations. Talked about Terry McLaurin. He talked about Deron Payne. Now, he didn't get into specifics with either one, but he did mention that they're going to speak to their representatives and start those negotiations, or at least dialogue, at the combine. Sounds about right. These are when a lot of these things start to kick off as we near the start of the new league year. So it makes sense. Here's the interesting thing with Terry, and I know a lot of you are getting antsy. I can't tell you how many times I've read or in some form of, Terry's going to want to leave. He doesn't have a quarterback here. We stink. He's going to want to go. He should go. He deserves to win. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Okay. He deserves to win. We should let him go. Similar to people that wanted Ryan Kerrigan to leave. He deserves a chance to win. Let him go. Okay, Kerrigan is like 30. Let him go. That's fine. He's been here. He's done his time. It's like he was in prison. He's done his time. He should be able to go free and see if he can chase a chip. That's not the case here with a young guy like Terry McLaurin on a rookie contract. I'm not interested in letting him go somewhere else because he deserves better. No. I want him here, okay? And Terry wants to be here, okay? Despite what you may have heard or what your ears have deceived you into thinking, okay, Terry wants to be here. Most guys, not everybody, most guys want to stay with the team that drafted them. As long as they don't feel disrespected, they want to stay. If the team has struggled, they want to help that team get out of the mud and be there when things turn around. Players, I told you, it's called athletic arrogance. If you don't have it, it's hard for you to survive and thrive in any professional sport. You have to have athletic arrogance. You have to think that your shit doesn't necessarily stink and that, hey, my presence being here is going to help this team exponentially. And if I continue to do my part, I'm going to help us get over the top. Terry believes that, and he wants to be here, and they want him here. Trust me, he's just like Jonathan Allen on the opposite side of the football. He's pretty much the only other guy outside of Jonathan Allen that I can assure you will be here long term. Terry's not getting away. Ron thinks too highly of him, and he's too big of a captain and a guy that does everything right for them to allow him to walk out of the door. That said, the numbers right now for Terry, and the reason Terry at the end of the season pretty much said, hey, not really worried about that. My agent will handle all of that now. It's because there's a lot of jockeying for position that goes on with these contracts that some of you can never even begin to imagine, which is why I talk about some of the things that I talk about. Like, for instance, when they were going out last year in free agency, when we knew we were getting a receiver, I said, the one thing you can't do is go out and get an Allen Robinson, who was never available because they franchise tagged him in Chicago. But I said, you can't go out and get an Allen Robinson or a Kenny Golladay. One of these guys is going to cost you 17, 18, 19, $20 million a year. Why? Because then Terry's going to look at that guy's salary and say, hey, he just got here. You're paying him XYZ. I need either the same amount or I need more because I've been here. I'm a captain on this team. He can't be making more money than me. These are the types of conversations and dialogues that take place. And these are the types of, things that go on. And you got to be thinking in that manner. And these teams aren't dumb. They know how these things work. So that's why they went out and got Curtis Samuel and get him on, $12, $13 million a year. And, Terry's going to dwarf that. That's nothing. That's chump change for Terry. All right. So the thing that we have to understand now is Terry is going to look around the league. He's going to look at the landscape of the receiver position. Terry's not looking to be the highest paid receiver in the league. That's not where he is because he's not that guy. And Terry's not going to demand that, right? But what Terry is going to look at are his peers from the 2019 NFL draft. And there are 3 receivers in particular that are going to be getting deals probably this offseason that Terry's going to want to take a nice, hard, long look at. Those receivers are Deebo Samuel, DK Metcalf, and A.J. Brown, all of which were taken in the second round, or just like Terry. Well, Terry's in the third round. So all of those were day 2 receivers, okay? All of them. None of them went in the first round. So there is no fifth-year option on any of those wide receivers. Those guys are going into the last year of their deal. These teams don't want to go into that last year and find themselves having a franchise tag. So more likely than not, every single one of those receivers is going to get a lucrative offer. Now, will they take it? We'll see this offseason. I expect at least 2 of those guys to sign on the dotted line. And I think Terry is going to sit back and wait. Nobody really ever wants to be first, right? Because when you're first, you ultimately end up being last. Now, if that doesn't matter to you, then you're like, look, I just want my bread. I just want it now because anything could happen. You could walk out of your house, slip on a banana peel. Who slips on banana peels? Slip on a banana peel, tear your ACL, and all of a sudden, Washington's like, whoa, wait a minute. I'm not giving you a long-term deal. You just tore your ACL. Anything could happen. So you much rather get your bread while it's there to be got. However, Terry's going to want, I think, in the neighborhood of the Kenny Golladay deal that was signed last year by the Giants. I think Kenny Golladay is making $17, $18 million a year, something like that. Terry's going to look at him and say, okay, I'm every bit as good as him, if not better. Okay, I need that kind of money in my life. And what he's also going to do is he's going to take a look at what deal Deebo Samuel gets, what deal A.J. Brown gets, what deal DK Metcalf gets, because those are his peers. All of those receivers were taken right around the same time he was taken. All of them in the second round, he's in the third round, and he's going to say to himself, I'm just as good as every bit of one of those dudes, if not better. Okay, statistically, from a yards perspective, he is better probably than most of those guys. The touchdowns is where those other guys, I think, start to separate themselves from Terry. But in any event, Terry's going to look and say, I got the receptions, I got the yards, I got back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. Who else in this group is doing that? So come talk to me, okay? So I think he's going to want to see at least 1 or 2 of those dudes get paid, see what they get, and then he's going to base his contract off of that. Somebody's got to be first. It could be Terry. I don't think it will be. So don't get antsy, okay? When we get to April and May and June and a deal still hasn't been struck with Terry McLaurin. Remember, Jonathan Allen's deal literally didn't get done until like 2 weeks before the start of training camp. Okay, these things, they drag out. These things are a process. It's going to take time. Don't sweat it. Okay, don't sweat it. Terry's not going anywhere. He's going to get his money, and he's, I think, going to take a wait and see approach to what other guys are doing, what they're getting that's in that same draft class, and then he's going to make a calculated decision on how much he feels like he's worth, and then you go from there. Because who knows? I think right now for Terry, that asking price is somewhere in the neighborhood of $16 to $18 million, right? I think roughly that's where they're probably thinking. You know, really probably closer to the high side of that on the 18 side, less on the 16 side. However, somewhere in that neighborhood, right? But what happens if, because the cap's going up, obviously, and then I'm hearing that the cap may go up again next year. And we're talking astronomical numbers. The cap is, I think, supposed to be maxed out at like $208 million this year. People are talking ridiculous numbers like 230. Remember, all this TV, the new TV money, that new money is coming in next year. So this thing is about to explode, right? So remember, this year's overpay is tomorrow's deal. So don't panic if Washington trades for a quarterback or gets a Jimmy Garoppolo, which I know makes some of you want to vomit in your mouth, including myself. And they decide, hey, we're going to rip this thing up, Jimmy, and we're going to give you a new deal. I wouldn't do that if I were them. Jimmy still got one more year left on his deal, and I think he's making, $27 million, I think, left on that final year of his deal. Whatever it is, at the end of the day, Washington has the cap space to do whatever the hell they feel like doing, whether that's signing a quarterback to a long-term deal if they were to trade for one, because just about every one of those dudes is looking for a new contract. Russell Wilson's going into, I think, the final 2 years of his deal. Derek Carr is looking for a new deal as we speak. I think Deshaun Watson would be the only one that's locked into a long-term deal where you don't have to worry about spending any kind of real bread right now. But even his, deal this year, I think if he were to play, I think it's like straight up $35 million, like straight cap hit. Like you can't get out of it. But that's still nothing compared to what a lot of these dudes are, going to get. Either way, I said all of that to say this. We've got the cap space to make anything happen. So paying Terry or paying this dude or paying that guy, it's not an issue. And the cap is going to go up. So I said that because what if the 49ers, they have to realize the value that Deebo Samuel is. They have to realize that they can't function without Deebo Samuel on the field. Like without number 19, their offense ceases to exist. Okay. I think they realize that. And because of that, Deebo holds all the leverage. The dude, I don't know what percentage of their offense he was, but it felt like he was like 30 some odd percent of their offense. That's what it felt like. Okay. However, the number wasn't probably that staggering, but it felt that way. When you watch the 49ers, you're like, look, if Deebo doesn't touch the football, they're in trouble. They're going to have to pay this guy an astronomical amount of money. And let's say the 49ers, they value him at $20 million per year. Okay. What if A.J. Brown waits, Deebo goes first, he gets 20, knocks it out of the park. A.J. Brown's like, yo, I'm better than him now. He's all around, he does all this stuff, but I'm the man. I'm the man. I need 21. And the Titans say, okay, you got it. It's yours. It's yours. And then DK's like, yo, I need 22 in the Seahawks. Nah, no the hell you don't. But you can take this 19 and a half. And DK's like, all right, cool, I'll take it. Terry's going to look at all those dudes and he's going to say, now, do I really want to come in last? Do I really want to settle for this 18? I think I can get to 20. I think I could be at 19.75. Don't think I want to settle for this AT. So if you wait, the price goes up. If you act now, the price is a lot lower, not exponentially, but it could be lower. But Terry's got to then say, you know what? This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. This is exactly the type of numbers I had in mind. Yeah, I'll sign. But if it's not, he's going to wait. What I'm telling you is don't panic. Terry's going to stay here and he's going to sign a long-term deal here. But there are some things that have to fall in place first. And a lot of that is going to be a wait and see approach that he and his agent, more likely than not, they're going to take and see what these other guys in that same draft class, what they end up signing for. And that's going to somewhat determine where Terry's market ultimately lies. Okay. So I said all of that to say this. Terry's getting that extension this summer, just like Jonathan Allen got it last summer. Jonathan Allen's extension came in July. Terry's is more likely than not, unless these guys start getting these deals, boom, 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 out of the way. And now we know where the numbers are. And now it's up to Terry to figure out where he, falls in line. And then Washington kind of meets them somewhere in the middle. Unless that happens early, which these things don't happen early. They tend to drag out. Terry is more likely than not going to sign probably June, July, somewhere in there. That'd be my guess. So don't panic. He's going to be in Washington, but it could take a little while. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, I digress. So let's get to the comment section, see what you guys have to say, and let's get this party kicked off with some super chats. And we have one from the Great Watubi. Thank you for the super chat, Great Watubi. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Great Watubi, writes, DraftKings, the Washington Commanders are plus 300 and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers plus 350 are the favorites to land Washington in 2022. I don't buy it, though. Those, to me, are significant odds that I wouldn't buy either. Now, here's the thing with Deshaun Watson, and there's still a lot of things that have to be sorted out there. He ultimately could, be suspended by the league. We still don't know. And any team that's trading for him is probably going to be in constant communication with the league as far as his situation is concerned. They're going to want to know what they're getting themselves into. Again, it's a tough situation because you just don't know with Deshaun Watson. The only way we're going to find out, because right now the league hasn't had to do anything. Their hand hasn't been forced because he's not playing any games. So as long as he continues to sit on the side, the league doesn't have to do anything. But the minute he gets traded and he's ready to lace him up and play, that's when all the heat will then be pushed upon the NFL. You'll have a bunch of protests. You'll have people coming out of the woodwork saying that this is a farce, and then that's when the league will start to do the whole protect the shield at all cost thing, and that's when they'll start trying to save face, and that's when they may say, all right, Deshaun, you gotta sit down for a little while until we figure this thing out. Right now, they were prepared to let him play last year. They're like, look, we don't have anything to go off of. He's fine right now. So that could change, but we'll see. I don't see him, and he's made it abundantly clear where he would like to go. The Vikings have no reason to trade for Deshaun Watson right now because they got Kirk Cousins sitting there making, $30-some-odd million. Like, they're not eating that. So right now, Kirk Cousins is tied to the Vikings. Kirk Cousins is tied to the Vikings for at least one more year. And so I don't see the Vikings doing anything in the Deshaun Watson market. That leaves Tampa Bay as the other team that he said he was really interested in going to. I think the Buccaneers are the odds-on favorite, which you said they are. I don't see how we're as close. I think the only reason we're as close of a favorite to the Buccaneers is because we're the vocally most desperate team. Who doesn't know that we're looking for a quarterback? Ron has said it a million times, and he'll continue to say it a million more. We're going to be aggressive. We've got all the capital. We know what it's going to take, and we're prepared to do whatever it takes to make it happen. He said it. So DraftKings and other odds makers out there, other books are saying they're desperate and they're willing to go to lengths that we're not sure other organizations like the Steelers and the Saints and some of these teams that are desperate for a quarterback in the Panthers, we're not sure that they're willing to go to the lengths that Washington is willing to go. So that's why I think the odds are so high. I, like you, don't buy it one bit. I'd stay away from that bet because I don't think it's one you're going to ultimately win. So we'll see what happens. I'm with you, Great Watubi. I don't buy it either. I think he ends up in Tampa Bay if someone is to trade for him. Trevor Patch, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Trevor Patch writes, hey, Lou, what's up, Trev? Says, catch you on playback. Are we getting Trubisky and Wentz in Baker's body? Sam Howell at 11 because Pickett and Willis are gone top 5 for a big price. I don't think that those quarterbacks are going top 5, right? I don't think they're going to go that early, but I could see one, if not both of them, going relatively early. I think Malik Willis is the wild card of this quarterback draft class in the sense that he could go as high as, 7, to a team like Carolina. I think the Panthers are 7th, I think, somewhere in there. Wherever the Panthers are, he could go as early as that. Kenny Pickett obviously could go there as well. But he could also go as low as, 30-something or 40-something. Like, to me, there is no other quarterback that has that big of a gap. Kenny Pickett isn't going to either go 7 or go 47. Like, he's going in the first round, Kenny Pickett is. I don't think there's another quarterback that has that wide of a range like a Malik Willis. To me, he's the wild card, okay? Like, Desmond Ridder isn't going top 10, right? I don't even think he's a first-round pick, personally. I think he ends up in the second round somewhere, but he could go late first round. Someone could, say, look at Desmond Ridder and say, hey, we'll take this kid. Pittsburgh, for instance. I already said, in my draft prospects one-on-one video, he'd be a perfect fit in Pittsburgh because he's a game manager. He'd come in there, take care of the football, make, a couple of throws here and there. And with that defense and Najee Harris and all the weapons they have at receiver and tight end, he'd come in there, manage the hell out of the game. And they've done it with less and won 8 games. They can do it with Desmond Ridder and win 8, 9, 10 games. So I can see the Steelers saying, you know what? We'll take this kid. We can't wait till the second round. He won't be there. We'll take him here. But for me, there isn't another quarter. Sam Howell isn't going top 10. Desmond Ridder isn't going top 10. Okay. Carson Strong isn't going top 10. Matt Corral, I don't think. He's another guy that is interesting, but I don't think he's going top 10. Like, the only 2 quarterbacks that could go top 10 are Willis and Pickett. And that's why, to me, Willis is the wild card because he could go top 10 or he could go all the way at 40. There's no other quarterback with that wide of a range other than Willis. Like, Kenny Pickett is going in the top 15 picks, period, end of discussion. He won't make it out of the top 15 picks. There's no other quarterback that can guarantee that in this year's draft. Not a single one. Okay, other than Kenny Pickett. Everyone else, I think, is there's a chance they could go in the top 15. There's a chance, but it's not a lock. Pickett is a lock to go top 15. And Willis, I think, is in that conversation, but he could also be a guy that people sour on through this process, and he ends up going 38th. So I don't think both of those guys are locks to be gone, but they could both be gone by 11. That's not out of the realm of possibility. Okay. But on the playback, you will definitely hear me talking about Trubisky. I haven't talked a lot about Wentz, and here's why. I don't think he is an option here. First of all, Wentz has to be released. I'm not sure that the Colts are going to release him. Okay. On one hand, they could save themselves $12, $13 million if they cut him loose. And you're thinking to yourself, well, what are we waiting on? But on the other hand, they have to eat $15 million worth of dead cap. Now, we've seen teams eat much more to get rid of a guy, right? We've seen this play out. The Eagles themselves ate, damn near 30 million, if I think it was, to get rid of Wentz, to trade him. So we've seen teams eat dead cap to get rid of guys in the past. So they wouldn't be the first, and they damn sure aren't going to be the last. However, it's also hard for me to wrap my brain around someone trading essentially a first and a third, which is ultimately what that deal is going to end up being for Wentz, because that second round pick is already converted over to a first because he played enough snaps to make it a first round pick for the Eagles. At this point, are you really going to come to grips with the fact that you gave a first and a third for a guy that only spent 1 year with your organization and you got to eat $15 million on the way out? That's just hard for me to fathom. And if you cut Carson Wentz, what the hell are you going to do at quarterback if you're Indianapolis? I get it. He wasn't good last year. He didn't want to get the vaccine. It caused problems. I understand all of it. But you also don't have anybody to take his place if you were to move on from him. You'd find yourself in the same boat with Washington and Carolina and Pittsburgh and Denver, the Broncos, in a place you don't want to be. Tampa Bay can now throw their name in the hat in quarterback hell, looking for one of these guys off the scrap heap. So I don't necessarily know if he's going to be released or not. We'll see. There are a lot of arrows pointing to him being released. I still make a case for him not getting released. Either way, I don't think he ends up here whether he gets released or not. I don't think they're interested in Wentz. They saw him up close and personal 2 years ago. He wasn't all that great last year. I don't think Ron Rivera and his brass are all that impressed with Carson Wentz, and neither am I at this point. So if the guy that had him play some of his best football in Philadelphia decides to give up on him, that speaks volumes. Remember, there were issues with lack of leadership from Wentz in Philadelphia. If they cut ties with him after one season in Indianapolis, what does that say about Carson Wentz? That's all I got to say. Let's see. Dejan Bell, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, I told my girl, let's Louis T and chill tonight. I love it. I love it. Want more of it. Hey, what's up, Dejan Bell's girl? What's up? So I love it. And hope you guys enjoyed the show, man. Grab some popcorn. Hope you got your popcorn ready. Appreciate y'all. Get caught up. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Get caught up. Get caught up. Get caught up. Anyway, I think people sleeping on Howell. He's the best guy to drop into this offense, in my opinion. Howell and Diami sound like damn Ron. Diami's connection at North Carolina was, you got a couple of emojis there that didn't show up here. I guess I'm going to say that those were fire. That's my guess. I say draft one of the linebackers at 11 and trade back into the back end of the first to get Howell. That's an interesting take. I am not as down on Sam Howell as a lot of people are. I think a lot of people are looking at him like, I'm good. He's a great value version of Baker Mayfield, and the Browns still aren't sure that Baker Mayfield is legit. So I think a lot of people aren't that sold on Sam Howell. I don't think he's terrible. I actually think he's got a chance if he lands in the right spot with the right talent. I think he could do some things. But if we ended up with Sam Howell in the first round, the back end of the first round, as you suggested, or even in the second, I wouldn't be mad at that. Yeah, I wouldn't be mad at Sam Howell. There are about 3 quarterbacks, and I will disclose those quarterbacks to all of my Mob Squad and Patreon supporters that I would have no issues with this team drafting in this year's draft. I'd have no qualms about any of those guys. Maybe 4, definitely 3. I could convince myself of 4. But again, at this point, what do you got? If you're Washington, what do you have to lose? You got nothing to lose, everything to gain. Because look, if ultimately, if you don't draft a guy at 11 and you end up trading back in, and you might give up a little draft capital, to get back into the first round. We've done that before. It cost us a second round pick. That sucks. You don't want to give up second rounders because second round picks are the new first round picks, right? So you don't want to give those up, but that would be what you would have to lose, right? But that's a small price to pay for potentially finding your franchise quarterback. So, a wise man once told me, until you have a franchise quarterback, you never, ever stop looking. You never stop throwing darts at the board. You never stop choosing and selecting quarterbacks. You never stop doing everything in your power to find that guy. So if Washington decides that they want to trade back into the back end of the first round, it doesn't necessarily have to be for Sam Howell, but someone that they target and they feel like could be that guy. More power to them. I'm on board. Let's do it. If they draft a guy in the second round, cool. He's not a first round pick, so the expectations come down a bit for me, but let's see what we got. I don't have a problem with them drafting one of these dudes. I don't have a problem with them not drafting any of them either. It could go either way for me. I have a problem if they draft, one or two of these guys. Like, come on, really? That's the best you could do? So we'll see, what happens. Ultimately, I don't put any stock into the dynamic between Diami and Sam Howell at North Carolina. And what Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are doing is electric and it's great. And I'm not saying that that's something that can't happen here, but what those two did at LSU en route to winning a national championship and what Sam Howell and De'Ami Brown did at UNC for 2 years pales in comparison. It's not the same thing. That 1 year of Jamar Chase at LSU was magical and it was game-changing. De'Ami Brown barely crept over 1,000 yards 2 years in a row. Okay. Now he did get over a G twice in a row. And that's a feat that a lot of guys can't lay claim to in college football. But what Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow did in 2019 was ridiculous. Like, I think Jamar Chase had like 1,800 yards receiving and like 20 some odd touchdowns. It was ridiculous. I said all of that to say this. If they decide to get Sam Howell, I'll be on board and it will have nothing to do with his connection with De'Ami Brown. Not a single thing. It'll be because I think this guy has some talent and I want to see if it can manifest itself here in Washington. We'll see what happens. I think Sam Howell is being slept on, but to what degree? Like, did we slap the alarm and sleep an extra 5 minutes? Or did you literally oversleep? You missed the bus and now you got to find a ride to school. I think it's more of the former, not the latter. Like, I think you just hit the alarm. It went off 5 minutes later again to say, hey, wake your ass up. We got somewhere to be. That's the kind of sleep that Sam Howell is getting right now. Like, you don't have drool coming out of your mouth and you just like totally disregarded the alarm on Sam Howell. Okay. But we'll see what happens. Rob, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Rob U, writes, what up, Lou? What's up, Rob U? Missed the last live because a 4:30 wake up can sometimes mean an early night in bed. It happens. We've all been there before. He says, as always, much respect, champ. Appreciate you and glad to have you on board tonight, Rob U. Let's see. Dejan Bell, double up, thank you for doubling up. Hope your Louie T and chill is going well. My guy Dejan Bell writes, let's say we sign a Buns free agent quarterback, hot Buns, and cut Landon. What would you be willing to give up to move up and get Kyle Hamilton? So what you're essentially asking me is what would you do to move into the top 5? Possibly the top 3 is what it's going to take to get a Kyle Hamilton, because let's be honest here. With no quarterback staring you in the face, tackle is one of those picks that could go off in the top 5, and edge rusher is generally, I mean, just let's look at the last 5-6 drafts. If the number 1 overall pick isn't a quarterback, the likelihood is it's an edge rusher. That's usually how it goes. You don't take a quarterback, it's Jadeveon Clowney. You don't take a quarterback, it's Myles Garrett. Okay. That's generally how it goes. If it's a quarterback, it's a quarterback. Those are the guys that usually go one. But if it's not a quarterback, it's usually an edge rusher. If it's not an edge rusher, it's a tackle. That's usually the pecking order, right? Either get the quarterback, get the guy that gets the quarterback, or you get the guy that protects the quarterback. But it's got something to do with quarterback. So obviously, edge rusher is going to be something that teams will covet at the top of this draft. Tackle, protecting your quarterback, is going to be something that teams will covet at the top of this draft. Unless free agency, like Teron Armstead, for instance, the Saints cannot re-sign Teron Armstead. The Jacksonville Jaguars need to protect their investment in Trevor Lawrence. If I'm the Jags, I got all this money. Why not throw a boatload of money at Teron Armstead to get him to protect Trevor Lawrence's blind side? Then you don't necessarily have to spend your top 3 pick on a tackle. You can then go and draft whoever you like. Kyle Hamilton is one of the best talents in this draft. If you want him, you're more than likely going to have to trade into the top 5 to get him. So what you're asking me essentially is, what would I be willing to give up to move up there? And it's not necessarily what I would be willing to give up. It's what would that team be willing to take, what they're asking for. Understand that moving into the top 5 of an NFL draft is very, very pricey. Okay. Washington, you're asking a team with a top 5 pick to move out of the top 10. That's going to cost you a pretty penny. Okay. So what you would essentially be asking yourself is, do I want to give up this year's 1, which you're going to swap, next year's 1, and you may have to give up a 2 as well. You may have to give up a 2 as well. It could be in this year's draft, or it could be in the following year's draft. But you're giving up your 1 in next year's draft, in addition to swapping out 1s. You're giving that up. So you could call it 2 1s, you could call it 1 1. It doesn't really matter. You're giving up a 1. You may have to give up a 2 or 3 as well, in addition to that 1. Are you willing to do that to go up to get a guy that's a safety? I don't think they're willing to do that. But if you ask me, that's what it's going to take. I don't think you'll be negotiating with a team that has an eye on one of your players, so it could lessen what you have to give up. But most of the time, teams aren't interested in your stuff. I want draft capital. If I'm moving out of the top 5 of a draft, oh, best believe I'm coming after draft capital. I'm not interested in your Daron Payne or your Montez Sweat. You keep that. I just want the draft picks. Let me figure out what I can do with that down the road. Those are assets that could be spendable or movable in the future. Let me have those. So that's what it would take. It'll take 1. So you'll be swapping out 1s. That team, let's just say you get to 4 to get Kyle Hamilton. 4 goes to 11. 11 goes to 4. So we'd swap those 1s. And then you'd have to give up next year's 1. And you're going to give up something else, more likely than not. It's probably not going to be a 2. 2's a little high. I think it'd be like a 3, though. Probably a 3. In addition to the 1 that you're giving up. Think of it this way. What did San Francisco give up last year to move it to number 3? Okay. That's what you need to ask yourself. What did it take? Because they were in a similar spot that we were in. I think the 49ers were at like 13, 14, somewhere in there, right? 12, 11, 13, 14, 15, somewhere in there. And they traded all the way up to 3. That would be the equivalent of us moving from 11 to, say, 4. What did that take? What did they have to give up to do that? Whatever they gave up, it'd be similar to that. Maybe not the exact same, but it'd be very close to that. You brought up something that I said we would talk about, and that's Landon Collins. So here's the skinny on Landon Collins. Landon is in a interesting spot. I think the team could approach Landon because the team really has all the leverage. They want to keep Landon, but they don't have to keep Landon. and Landon can't make the amount of money that he's due to make here in Washington this year on the current deal he's under, he's not going to make that on the free agent market. I think Landon Collins due like $12, $13 million this year on his deal. He's not getting that out on the free agent market. You cut that damn near in half, 7, maybe 8, depending on, what team is after him and if he can get teams into a bidding war. But he ain't getting $12, $13 million on the open market. He knows that. And we know that, which is why we have all the leverage. So in this case, they could go to Landon and ask one of two things. We need you to restructure. I don't think they're interested in asking him to restructure at this point. Restructure is usually for guys that you plan on keeping long term. You just want to know, hey, we can use a couple extra bucks, like the Packers just did with Aaron Jones. Hey, we could use a couple extra bucks. We're thinking about keeping Devontae. If you could just allow us to move some money around, we'll give you some of this up front, just restructure a little bit. That'll do us a huge solid, man. We owe you one. That's what Aaron Jones just did for the Packers. Why? Because they plan on keeping him for a number of years. I don't think Landon Collins is a part of the long-term future here in Washington. So you don't go to a guy like Landon Collins to restructure. You go asking for some of your money back. You're looking for a pay cut. To which Landon probably says, not no, hell no. To which Washington responds, we thought you'd say that. And then the next day, Landon Collins wakes up and realizes he's been cut. If that, in fact, takes place, then you save yourself $6 million. I think it's $6, $7 million, something like that, roughly on the cap. That's cool. We're not hurting for bread, though, which is why I said they don't have to do this. They would be just doing it because they want to move on. So, and again, if Landon says, yeah, I'll take the pay cut, then they're not moving on. But I think that you know how it is. You really don't want your homeboy to go into the mall with you, but every time you ask him, he says no. So, he complains every time you don't ask him. He bitches and complains. Yo, how you and Mario go to the mall? You ain't even call and ask me if I wanted to go. Because we knew you weren't going to go. Every time we ask you, you say no. So you just do the courteous thing. And you ask because you know he's going to say no. Washington knows good and well Landon Collins is going to refuse the pay cut, which is going to force their hand and force them to cut him. So they're going to go to him, ask him if he'll take a pay cut. He's going to say no, and then they're going to cut him. If he says yes, they're going to be like, we thought you said, wait, what? Yes? You'll take the pay cut? Okay, cool. And it's a win-win situation. Either he's here and he takes a pay cut and you save money, or he's not here, you cut him and you save money. Either way, they're going to look to save money. They don't have to. But again, this is how the rich stays rich. They don't just spend frivolously because they can. They're looking to save money at every corner. That's how the rich stay rich. Okay? They invest. They don't spend, they invest. It's different. Okay? You don't get anything back on spending unless you've got a credit card with cash back. And even that's minimal. When you invest, there could be something coming back your way. Anyway, we'll see what happens with this Landon Collins situation. I think ultimately he'll be gone. That's what I think. If I had to take a guess. Same thing with Brandon Sheriff. I don't think he's going to be back. I think we've seen the last of Brandon Sheriff. I think they felt disrespected. And you could hear it in their tone when they talked about offering him a deal to make him the highest paid guard. I think they took that as a slap in the face. Like, you truly don't want to be here. You say you want to be here, but you're talking out both sides of your mouth. One side is saying, I want to be a Washington, Redskin / football team member / commander for life. The other side is like, bro, get every single penny you can out of this situation. And if they don't want to pay up, somebody else like Cincinnati will. We'll see what happens. I don't think he's getting his bread here. I think they offered him that deal last year. He didn't take it last year. That showed them you don't really want to be here. You don't really want to be here. Because if you did, you would have took the deal. Look, we all know how the game goes. They know how the game goes. They know that Brandon had all the leverage and he had no business signing a long-term deal. If you're maximizing your career and your playing time, you do what Brandon did. If you're loyal and you want to stay somewhere and you truly mean what you say, which is, I want to stay here, you sign a long-term deal. Brandon didn't do that. He turned down the most money of any guard in the league history. They took that as a slap in the face, and I think they're going to move on from Brandon Sheriff. I think they should have moved on from him last offseason and not paid him $18 million. But that's nor here nor there. Bottom line is, Brandon will probably get his bread elsewhere, and I think that's the right thing to do. I think we've seen here, even though Brandon Sheriff's a hell of a football player, love him to death, we've seen that other guys have come in and they filled in amicably and admirably. Okay. Now, it's not Brandon Sheriff, right? But we've seen other guys step in, and I'm not saying they don't need to do something. If you move on from Brandon Sheriff, I think you need to do something. Like draft a guard. I'm not saying it's got to be the first or the second or even the third round, but you need to take a guard at some point. But we've seen that in the event that Brandon Sheriff can't go, and we know every year Brandon Sheriff won't be able to go at some point for a number of weeks. We've seen Wes Schweitzer step in. We've seen Sadiq Charles step in at one point. I think we've got enough here that somebody can fill in and give us quality snaps. Now, the depth will then be tested if we don't do something else, and they will. Trust me, if Brandon Sheriff is not back, they will fill that void with someone. We'll see. Anyway, I digress. Let's see. Johnny Boy 26. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Johnny Boy 26 writes, we trade back in the first mid-20s, draft Carson Strong, pick up an extra first, and use the draft capital to build around him. Idea? I'm going to turn out the light on that idea. Okay. Carson Strong, I already told you, for my money, isn't a draftable quarterback in the first round. So that debunks your theory right there for me. Now, this is your scenario. I'm not raining on your parade. I'm just telling you what I think of your scenario. I'm pouring a nice cold bucket of water. I'm extinguishing that fire right now, and I'm turning out the light on that one. Because Carson Strong, I told you I wouldn't take him. I wouldn't touch him until the third round. Okay? The man doesn't have cartilage in his knee. Okay? They replaced it with a cadaver cartilage. Like, I don't know about you, but I told you the guy can barely move. I don't know if that's getting any better. Carson Strong isn't a first round pick for me, personally. So I talk about this all the time. I make fun of a lot of you out there. But the whole trade back scenario, you guys aren't the only ones that do this. Everyone that wants to trade their team to trade back, they do this. Hey, let's just trade back. Okay. So are you trading by yourself? You trading with someone else? Like, how does that work? Like, obviously, it takes two to tango. You can't just say, hey, we should trade back. It has to not only make sense for you, it also has to make sense for someone behind you that wants the 11th pick to come up and get someone. So, and again, I've said this before and I'll say it again. When you're as bad as we were last season and you end up with a top 15 pick, you need to come away with some kind of elite talent. Okay. As I've mentioned, usually when you're right outside of the top 10, if things fall your way, there should be some spillage, right? I'm looking for some Marshawn Lattimore type spillage. A guy that should have been a top 5 pick, but because of all these quarterbacks and all these teams deciding to go in a different direction, a guy that had top 5 talent slides out of the top 10, and the Saints are like, arms open wide. Come here, we love you. Spillage. at its finest. I'm hoping we get some of that. Now, again, I don't know if that's going to occur, but I said that to say this. If you're trading out of 11, are you missing out on some talented football players? Again, when you're at 11, you make a list of 11 guys that you would be willing to take. And one of them is going to be at 11. So there may be a list of 11 guys. There may only be 7 guys that you think are worthy of the 11th pick. And all 7 could be gone. And at that point, you're like, you know what? I want out of 11. Let's see if anybody is desperate to come up. And you start working the phones. However, the likelihood is you're at 11. You make a list of 11 guys that you love in this draft. And you say one of them is going to be here. You may have grades on players, and 15 guys in this draft may have a grade of 88 or higher, and then the next highest grade is an 83 as you get to the 16th player rated on your board. So if you trade, let's say you want to trade back into the 20s, you trade back to 20 on the dot, on the head, right? You just dropped off exponentially from the first 15 guys on your board that you had rated to now guys that are maybe even in the 70s, because you're now down to 20. These are things that you have to take into consideration. It's not just, hey, don't have the guy I want here, got to trade back. Sometimes you got to go to plan B, C, or D. So I said all of that to say this. The likelihood of Washington trading back is slim and none. I don't see them trading back. I don't see them trading up, but I think it's more likely that they trade up than they trade back. Now, they could get a call from someone, and they could look at all the players that are available and say, you know what? The difference between the guy that we are going to select at 11 and moving back to 16, it's negligible, okay? We may still be able to get the same guy that we were going to take at 11, or there's a guy comparable, or there are other guys that we think are similarly graded in that same, range. 11, 16 really doesn't make any difference. We'll pick up the draft capital, move back 5 spots, and still get a good football player. However, sometimes you're better off just taking a guy where you sit because that's the better value. So we'll see. I can tell you this. There is no value for me. This is my perspective. I can't speak for anybody else. You lose value by trading back and then selecting Carson Strong in the first round. Everything you did by picking up draft capital, you've negated by spending a first-round pick on Carson Strong. That's how I feel about him. So, there's that. Thank you for the super chat, Johnny Boy 26. Captain JR, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy, Captain JR writes. We're going to end up drafting a rookie this year that will play like garbage. We'll end up with the top 3 pick in next year's draft. Draft a QB again. Okay. So I'm gonna take a timeout. I just want a 30-second. I don't need a full timeout here. Even if, and Ron showed you this already, even with a less than ideal quarterback situation, we're not going to end up with a top 3 pick. I can assure you of this. With Ron Rivera as a head coach. I know some of you think less of Ron and you don't think that Ron is this or that, and that's fine. Okay. I'm not here to sell you a dream on Ron Rivera. I believe in Ron's plan. Okay. You guys know that. However, what Ron has shown me in his first 2 years here, and even in some of those years in Carolina, those last few years in Carolina, especially, no matter what you do to the quarterback position, and he showed this, he fought like hell in Carolina with some of those teams. They lost a lot of close games. What he showed me in year 1 here, when he started 4 different quarterbacks, including a guy that hadn't started a game for us in a playoff game, and what he did last year with Taylor Heineke after expecting to have Ryan Fitzpatrick, and then in the second quarter of the first game of the season, having your starter go down and having Heineke have to step in, and then hell, even having to start Garrett Gilbert 1 game. What he showed me is that this team's going to compete and they're going to win some games. They're going to beat a couple of teams you don't expect them to beat, like we did the first year against Pittsburgh, like we did last year against Tampa Bay. We're going to win some games you probably don't think we're going to win. I don't think we're going to win. We're going to compete like hell. Yeah, we're going to lose some games that you thought we should have won, and we're going to lose some games close that we had a chance to win. We didn't make enough plays, but we're also going to win our fair share of games. That was with a first-place schedule. We will be playing a third-place schedule this year, a much easier schedule. We will not be playing one of the best divisions in football like we did last year with the AFC West. We won't be playing that division again. As a matter of fact, we beat one team in that division. That was the Vegas Raiders. Lost to all three of the other teams. Won't be playing that division again this year. So when I look at the schedule, and I don't like to play the schedule game, you know that. But I can't help but think we got the extra game at home this year, which probably doesn't make a difference. It's FedEx Field. It's not even a home field advantage. But still, it's better than having to travel on the road, right? The guys get to sleep in their bed an extra night. They don't have to travel. It's still beneficial, even though it's not really a true home field advantage. Still another home game. We don't have to play the Buffalo Bills as that extra game like we did last year. We're not going to see the murderer's row of quarterbacks that we saw Mahomes and Allen and Herbert and Carr and, you know, all of these guys and Rodgers and Brady. We don't have to see that murderer's row of quarterbacks this year like we did last year. He still won 7 games in both of those years with all of the adversity that we faced. COVID destroying and wrecking our season last year. Still won 7 games. You're not going to finish 4-13 with Ron Rivera, which is what it'll take for you to have a top 5 pick. You're not going to finish that way with Ron Rivera. You can come off of that. We will get a dude off the streets. Philip Walker will come in here and we'll win 2-3 games with Philip Walker, if need be, with Ron Rivera as our head coach. And again, this is with a much more talented roster. You want us to finish with the top 3 pick, you got to take us back to 2019 when our roster was as sorry as it gets. One of the worst Washington teams I've ever seen. And I've sat through the years, the lean years after Gibbs 1.0 with North Turner, you know, and all these failed draft picks, Heath Schuler and Reggie Brooks and all of these guys that we drafted that stunk, that came here. And I sat through those years, 4-12 and 5-11. I sat through those years. We stunk a lot of those years where our best player was Terry Allen or it was Ken Harvey, and we were garbage. I sat through those years. And remember those years. They didn't look like 2019. That was the worst. This team isn't remotely close to that. And as bad as we were the second pick in the draft. We're never going back there. Well, I shouldn't say never. We're not going back there with Ron Rivera as our head coach. So I don't care what happens at the quarterback position, how garbage Mitchell Trubisky or Marcus Mariota or whomever ends up being our quarterback is. We're not winning 3 or 4 games. You know what I mean? Our division alone won't allow us to do that. I don't know how good the Giants are going to be with their new head coach. I don't know how good the Eagles are going to be with year 2 of Jalen Hurts being the guy. But I feel pretty confident saying neither one of those teams strikes fear in our hearts. The Cowboys don't either. We're going to win at least 1 or 2 games in the division by itself. We're not going to end up with the top 3 pick, no matter what we do with the quarterback position. The only thing that scares me, that I fear, and I've said this already, is that we draft a guy in the 2nd round. He shows us, you know, he gets in the final 7 games of the season, similar to Dwayne in his rookie season. We see flashes, you know, there's a little bit of hope. And that little ray of hope that you're holding on to is enough to stop you from feeling like you need to draft a quarterback the following year when it's a much better crop. That's the only thing that I'm afraid of, is that you're stuck with a mediocre quarterback, but he's shown you just enough to where you're thinking to yourself, hey, maybe with a full off season, you can convince yourself. We did the same shit with Dwayne. I convinced myself. There was a lot of shit going on with Dwayne. The flags were there already. The red flags were there. I said, but, you know, he won the Detroit game. But then he took the selfie and he wasn't there to take the knee. Like, there were flags there. But we ran through all of the red lights, all the stop signs, because he showed us flashes like that Eagles game. Nothing was better than that Giants game before he got injured. He was unconscious. He couldn't miss. You put all of that together, you say, hey, man, maybe this Dwayne dude is it. He's legit. It was good enough for us to say, you know what? We don't need Justin Herbert or Tua Tagovailoa. We're going to take Chase Young. And I was on board. I'm not going to sit here and second guess. That was my guy. Because I believed in Haskins. Or at least I wanted to. That's the thing that I'm afraid of. You take a guy in the second round, he shows you a little something at the end of the season, and it's enough to get Ron and company to say, you know what? Let's give this guy a chance. I would hope they don't make that mistake, but they're human. Let's see. We got any more super chats? We do. This one is from Captain JR as well. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Captain JR. Greatly appreciate you who writes. Fans are too hard on Ron. At least he knows what the team needs to be winners. If the fans gave him a chance, he will get it right sooner or later. So here's the thing. The fans are hard on Ron, but they would have been hard on any coach. Because at the end of the day, this fan base is tired of losing. Period. End of discussion. It could have been Vince Lombardi coaching this team. All right. If Vince Lombardi came here with his track record and the first 2 years was 7-9 and 7-10, they'd be doing the same thing to Vince Lombardi. If Bill Belichick came here in his first year, because you're thinking in your head, oh shit, it's Bill Belichick. He about to turn this bitch around immediately. And then you go 7 and again, Ron didn't even come here with that fanfare. He didn't come here with the expectation of, oh my God, he's about to turn this around right now. Not now, like right now. He came in and he told everybody, hey, I was in the military growing up. My family was in the military. And what was imparted on me is that it takes at least 4 years to change a culture. Ron kept saying it over and over again because he wanted to put that battery in our back. He wanted to embed in our minds, this is not a quick turnaround, bro. They brought me here to totally change this from top or from bottom all the way to the top. From top to bottom, however you want to say it. We're going to take out the trash. We're going to change the way teams and people around the league view us. And we're going to start getting some good football players in here. We're going to try to turn this thing around and win some games. And that's not going to happen overnight. And I told you guys, and this is part of the reason the fans are really hard on Ron right now. Because year one, Ron did something he had no business doing. And it wasn't his fault. It's just the way the NFC East, fell. He won a division. I told you those were going to, with it, bring unrealistic expectations. And that's exactly what it did. All of a sudden, fans that were willing to wait and be patient, now all of a sudden, hey, we just won a division. This defense looks legit. Chase Young's a beast. Terry McLaurin's a beast. Antonio Gibson's a beast. What are we waiting on? Get this quarterback. Let's get this party started ASAP. Well, we didn't get the quarterback. We got Ryan Fitzpatrick. Yet, that didn't stop some of you out there from thinking, hey, next gen stats. Ryan Fitzpatrick, the best in the league against the blitz. Interesting. Nice. Okay. And some of you were ready. Hey, here we go. And I wanted to see what it was going to look like. I didn't want him here, but I was like, all right, here. I mean, there ain't shit else I can do but cheer for him. Hope that it works out. But that didn't stop a lot of people from putting those expectations on Ron. Look, I don't give a shit. Ryan Fitzpatrick, Ryan O'Donnell, Ryan O'Neal, Donald Duck. I don't care. We need to win 10, 11 games this year. I'm like, you do realize that roster that we, that schedule that we had the year before was pretty trash, right? And this schedule this year, last year I'm speaking of, is murderer's row with these quarterbacks. You are aware of this. And they were like, I don't give a shit. Ron needs to win 10 games or else. And so winning the division in year one put unrealistic expectations on Ron in year two. Now I think he's feeling the heat, which is why I think he's out there campaigning for a new quarterback. And at the end of the day, I think that's going to backfire on him as well. But I agree with you. I think Ron can turn this thing around. But fans aren't looking to be patient. They've been patient for over 20 years. They're not looking to wait any longer. They want to win, and they want to win now. And it doesn't help when you see a team like Cincinnati go from rags to riches. But as everyone continues to point out, very obviously, the Bengals have something that we don't have, which is why Ron is desperately trying to find one. That's quarterback. Franchise, not just any quarterback. That dude at quarterback. So, fans are hard on Ron, but I get it. You get it too. You understand it. You may not like it. I don't like it, but I get it. I understand it. I know why. King of the North. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, King of the North, writes, what's up with Fitzpatrick? They liked him enough to invest in him last year. Perhaps he's still an option for a 1 year fill-in. I think in their minds, that could have been something that could have been, more than just a year. Had he come in here, played well, and did what they thought he was capable of doing. But at, 30 whatever years old, what is he, 38 years old or whatever? He bust up his hip, misses the entire season. They're not looking to go down that road again. They went down that road once. Let me ask you something. Would you sign Fitzpatrick back for a year? Knowing what you know now, the guy's, damn near 40. And he missed all of last season due to a hip injury. The hit that he took looked pretty, it looked pretty, not harmless, but didn't look like the kind of play that you should be, breaking your hip essentially like an old man and missing the entire season for. We've all heard the story of him going to the water park, with his kids and, really hurting his hip on the water slide. And that's probably what did it. And then he just pretty much, really injured it in the game. There could be validity to that. I believe that to be true, potentially, but that doesn't matter. He's old. And he just showed you that he can easily be injured. You don't want to go down that road again. And they're not. And I don't blame them. All right. Rob, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Rob, greatly appreciate you. Who writes, what do you see for Curtis Samuel in 2022? I really think he can be a big part of this offense. And I look, at this point, I'm looking for guys to show improve. I'm not going to sit here and talk it up. We've done this before with guys in the past, and it's blown up in our faces. I've told you guys this many a time, especially when it comes to guys getting injured when they get to Washington. I don't want to talk about what a guy has done elsewhere. I want to talk about what a guy has done here. And to this point, Curtis Samuel has done next to nothing here in Washington. That said, if he stays healthy, and this is the reason why I'm somewhat confident that he'll come back and he'll play well for us and he'll stay healthy, is because this is not who he's been throughout his career. It'd be one thing like when we went out and got Paul Richardson, and there was a track record that preceded him that said, hey, that 1 year that he had before he got to Washington, when he had that semi-breakout year, that's an aberration, okay? The norm is that this guy gets hurt every year and that you're not going to get too many snaps out of him. That's the norm. You are banking on the aberration that you got last year, which is, You know, he was a big play threat. He played in like 15 games. And you're thinking, hey, if we can, get this guy to stay healthy, that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's not what Curtis Samuel has been throughout his career. He's been a guy that's been pretty durable. Last year was a one-off. I'm hoping that he stays healthy, puts that in the past, and he comes in here and he plays well. I think when you look at Curtis Samuel, and I don't really know what they're going to do with him, right? We assume that they get it. Ron has said that, look, we saw how he was utilized his last year in Carolina, and we think we can do some of those things here. We'll see. I'd like to think that he'd be a poor man's Deebo Samuel. He's not quite Deebo Samuel, right? But I'd like to think he could have that kind of an impact. Hurt you at receiver, hurt you out of the backfield, hurt you in a multitude of ways. That's how I envision Curtis Samuel. Remember that game against the Panthers in 2020 when he ate our asses alive? Had the big 40-some-odd yard run, had the big 40, 50-yard catch. Like, that's how I envision him being used, in a multitude of ways to hurt you. I think he can do that for us. I think he can be another option to get the football to. And even in some of those games where he didn't play a lot, we saw some of the impact early in the season. That Atlanta game comes to mind. He had 2 big catches in that game, if you recall. One on a 3rd down, one on a 4th down. So he showed the ability, it wasn't a lot because he wasn't healthy very often, right? But he showed the ability to make some plays, when he was healthy. So I'm intrigued by him. And, if he gets that clean bill of health this season, I think he could do some big things for us. We still need another receiver, whether he's healthy or not. I still think we need to add another receiver to the mix. Whether that's them bringing Cam Sims back or going out and getting a guy. We still got to do something at receiver. Because Cam Sims technically isn't on the roster. Come March, whatever. He's technically not on the roster anymore. Thank you for the super chat, Rob U. Rob U, thank you for the super chat yet again. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Rob U writes, how much is too much when going all in on a QB? I mean, it just depends on who you're going all in for. Right? That's the real question. Washington can afford any price because remember, with every one of these quarterbacks stands for Deshaun Watson, you're probably going to have to pay that guy when you get him. That includes Jimmy Garoppolo. If you trade for him, you're going to have to pay him probably as well. You're not going to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo and then let him walk away after next season when the contract expires. You trade for Jimmy Garoppolo, the likelihood is you're going to, take that final year of the deal and add another 2-3 years to it. And it's going to cost you a lot of money that some of you would probably want to throw up. Again, you'd want to vomit in your mouth when finding out how much it would probably cost to not only trade for, but then sign Jimmy G to an extension. You probably would be beside yourself. But that's the going rate for a quarterback, and that's how business is conducted. Anyway, but if you're going in for Jimmy G, obviously the price isn't the same for Jimmy G as it would be for Derek Carr, as it would be for Aaron Rodgers, as it would be for Russell Wilson. Like these are all, different prices. For Watson, Wilson, and Rodgers, I think the price is the same. It's 3 first-round picks if you want one of those guys. Like I don't see any way that you get one of those guys and pry them away from their current teams without it. But you get to Derek Carr. It's not 3 first-round picks, but it might be 2. And a player, it could just be 2 first-round picks and, a third or something like that. Then you come down to Jimmy Garoppolo. It's definitely not. For me, it's not a first. It's not even a second. The 49ers are probably looking for a day. Look, they want a first, right? But they'll take a day 2 pick. I'm not even willing to give you a day 2 pick. You want to offload Jimmy Garoppolo, you're going to take this day 3 pick. And personally, it's 5th round or later for me. That's how little I think of Jimmy Garoppolo. But there are multiple teams that are interested. So I would assume that that's going to push the price of the package up, right? And you're going to probably end up having to spend a day 2 pick at minimum for Jimmy G's services So it just depends on what quarterback you're going after. What price is too much or too steep? There is no price too steep if you're getting an elite, okay? There is no price that's too steep if you're getting an elite. So if you're getting Deshaun Watson or you're getting Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, there's no price that you're not willing to pay. Now with Aaron Rodgers, and again, this is a hypothetical because none of those guys, especially Rodgers in particular, is coming here. There's an outside chance that, Russell Wilson ends up here. I don't think it happens. But there's a 0% chance Aaron Rodgers ends up here. Okay, just saying that. But, in the event that Rodgers was the guy that was on the radar that you could get and he wanted to come here, you'd want to not give up as much because who knows how long you're going to have Aaron Rodgers for, right? Whereas with Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson, you're getting at least a minimum of 5 years of service out of both of those guys. With Watson, it's more like 10 to 12. If he's healthy and he continues to play well, it's just into the future, it's indefinitely. Whereas with Russell Wilson, who knows how much football, good football, elite football he's got left in him, but it's at least 4 to 5 years of it. So you'd give it up for that. You give it up for 4 or 5 year run of every year playoffs and having a chance to contend. You'd give it up in a heartbeat. So what's too much? It just depends on the commodity. It depends on the player that you're trading for. That's going to determine how much is too much. If it's one of the elites, there is no price that's too high at this point. If you're going all in, you go all in for Watson, Rodgers, or Wilson. But again, of that group, 2 may be possible. 1 probably is attainable, but the likelihood is none will end up here. So then you start talking about Derek Carr. Don't think he's leaving Vegas. I think it's then the price significantly comes down. Like, okay, now I'm not willing to give up anything and everything. When we start talking about Jimmy Garoppolo and even Derek Carr. But I think they would have been willing to go all in on Derek Carr too, if they had to. Let's see. Super chat here from J Kurt 20. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you who writes. If we get any free agent or rookie quarterback, they are going to need more weapons. Feel like Ron is comfortable with what we have. We need more, not enough. If you're taking Ron at face value, and I tend to do that, then yes. And I've already called Ron out for this because I've said that Ron keeps implying that this roster is a really good roster. Like when you listen to Ron, and what is he supposed to say, right? Like this is a roster that he's essentially assembled and they feel good about the roster. They should feel good about the roster. They should not feel great. At times, Ron leads you to believe that this is a tremendous roster and we're literally a quarterback away. That is the furthest thing from the truth. Okay. Tongue got a little thick there. The furthest thing from the truth. Couldn't be more false. Right? We are more than just a quarterback away. We need more playmakers. I would even say this, and some of you may disagree with me, and that's fine. I think we need to add a running back this offseason. I'm not, even if you bring back J.D. McKissick, I'm not comfortable with just Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissick with a little bit of mini-me on the side. He was cool last year when we were debating about, whether to keep Peyton Barber or, bring him along. But ultimately, I feel like we could upgrade running back. I would draft a guy this year. I think there will be some value in day 3 of the draft. Early day 3, rounds 4 and 5. I think there will be some value in there at running back. I'd take a guy. But that's me personally. You know how I feel about tight end. I talked about this on the podcast, and I'll rehash it here because I know a lot of you didn't watch the podcast episode, but I talked about how deep the tight end free agency class is this year. It's ridiculous. It's the deepest class I've ever seen at any position in a free agency, period. Never seen one position loaded like the tight end position. Now, again, that position can go from loaded to just average by the snap of a finger if 3 teams decide we're franchise tagging our tight ends. We're not letting this guy walk. And it could happen. I don't see it happening because in my mind, teams are looking at the draft crop of tight ends this year and they're saying it's deep. We don't have to pay a guy $13 million per year to be our tight end when we can draft one of these young boys and pay him peanuts for the next 4 years. Because I don't think we're going to have a first-round tight end this year. But I guarantee you there'll be about 5 or 6 of those boys that come off the board in the second round and another 3 or 4 that come off the board in the third round. You will go 32 picks without a tight end in day 1, and then you might turn around and have 7 tight ends drafted in day 2. That's how deep this class is. It may not have a standout guy that wows you running a 4.4 something, but it's a lot of quality tight ends in this year's draft class. And we're going to find out when you see how many of them go in the second and the third and the fourth and the fifth round. It will be concentrated in those 4 rounds right there in the middle, if you ask me. And we should be one of the teams interested if we're not going to go bag us one in free agency. We should be one of those teams. We shouldn't be sitting on our hands, cool with, Logan Thomas coming off of an ACL and cool with, Reyes developing and, saying, hey, we could bring Ricky Seals-Jones back. That shouldn't be enough. And, oh, yeah, we got, John Bates. No, we shouldn't be sitting on our hands because we drafted John Bates last year. Because we got Sammy Reyes developing. Because Ricky Seals-Jones looked good last. We shouldn't be sitting on our hands. We should either be going out here and acquiring one of these tight ends via free agency or drafting a young boy and adding him to the mix in the draft. But to your point, I think Ron acknowledges that this roster isn't complete. Not even if we had a quarterback, it's not complete. But I think he has overrated this roster, and he's selling. I told you he's out campaigning right now. And when you're on a campaign, you overpromise because that's the only way you get the vote. You overpromise. Ron is out here telling everybody, why wouldn't you want to come to Washington? We're loaded, man. We're loaded. We got Terry McLaurin. We got Antonio Gibson. We got Logan Thomas. I read an article where, and I could tell right away that this person wasn't a Washington fan that wrote this article. And it wasn't. It was an outsider. But they pretty much said Washington could potentially have a top 7 player at every position, wide receiver, and then it had McLaurin in parentheses, running back had Antonio Gibson in parentheses, and tight end, Logan Thomas in parentheses. And I'm like, really? Terry's not top 7. Logan's definitely not a top 7 tight end. He might have been going into last year after what he just did last year. There's no way he's a top 7 tight end anymore. And Antonio Gibson, he's, for as talented as he is, and I love the kid, he is not a top 7 running back in this league. So I said all of that to say, I think some people overrate what we have, Ron included. Ron's like, yo, we got all those dudes that I just named. We got Curtis Samuel. And I'm like, okay, stop right there because we don't have anything else. Okay. And then he says, and we got an offensive line. Okay, fine. The offensive line is solid. It's not world beaters. Let's not act like this is the second coming of the Hogs. So it's a quality offensive line. It's not top notch, but it's okay. It's good enough. I'll grant you that. You may be losing your best player on the offensive line, by the way, in Brandon Sheriff. So I'm like, it's not what you're making it out to be, but I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing, and I get it. We're gonna really find out, because I think some of what Ron is doing is lip service, because he's campaigning. He's campaigning for a quarterback to choose us. So you have to put your best foot forward, and you have to say, hey, why wouldn't a guy want to choose Washington? Because the narrative is, why the hell would anybody choose Washington? So Ron's campaign has to be centered around, why wouldn't you choose Washington? What are you, crazy? We got everything you need here. Ron's actions will speak much louder than his words. If we don't go out and acquire a receiver and or a tight end in free agency, if we don't acquire a tight end, wide receiver, and or an offensive guard or a running back, for that matter, in free agency or the draft, and we just bring back the gang, essentially minus Brandon Sheriff. And yeah, I don't see any way possible that they allow Sheriff to walk and don't replace him with somebody. But if they just say, hey, we're going to bring back Ricky Seals-Jones, we're going to bring back Cam Sims, and we just going to let it ride, then you could actually say Ron is really tripping. He truly believes the shit he's been campaigning. And nobody ever believes what a dude is campaigning or a woman is campaigning when they're on the trail. They saying whatever they got to say to get your damn vote. Ron is out here campaigning because he's trying to get a quarterback to choose us. But if he actually goes, re-signs Cam Sims, re-signs Ricky Seals-Jones, and we just come back status quo, and we just run it back next year, like we just did something major last year, then I got a problem. I don't think Ron's going to do that. I think he's just offering up some lip service, because that's what he needs to say to convince a Russell Wilson or Derek Carr or whoever they may be after, or Deshaun Watson, that this is where you need to be. We'll see. Ron could be serious. He could be serious. All right. Thank you for the super chat, J. Kurt 20. Got a super chat here from my guy, John Livingston. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Jay Smooth, writes, prayers to Ukraine. Scary time right now. It is. Generally, I'm a A. If it don't concern me, I'm going to just stay out. But when stuff like this happens, like, I remember when I was a kid, I used to always get mad. I'm not going to turn this into a political commentary, because that's not what we're here to do. And JL Smooth wasn't trying to do that. He was just saying, hey, thoughts and prayers go to the Ukraine right now. And I saw something that was crazy on socials before I got up here. Dude was essentially saying he's hoping he's not saying goodbye and saying, his last goodbyes to his kids, right? But he's kissing his daughters and his wife. They're sending them off for, to safety, but he's going to stay behind and fight. The Ukraine don't stand a chance by themselves, right? And they're going out, they're arming people who have never actually fired weapons in their lives. They're arming them and saying, hey, let's protect what's ours. And the man is going to stay behind and fight for his country. And he's kissing his daughter, and he's crying, and his daughter, she can't be any more than 6. She's crying, and you're like, man, that's some heavy shit. Generally, I don't get involved in matters that don't pertain to me. You know how I feel. If it's not my business, I don't stick my nose where it doesn't belong. But that's some hard shit to watch and not want to get involved. But we'll see what happens. That's some pretty rough shit, man. I can say that, man. That's some pretty down, dirty, Dick Dastardly shit that Russia's doing right now. Anyway, I digress. B. Smitty, stand up. You are officially the newest member of the MOBB mob. You know what to do. B. Smitty is looking. He's searching. He's probing for some love. Give it to him, man. B. Smitty, welcome to the squad. We've been waiting on you, bruh. Welcome aboard. Glad to have you. Journey Reed. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Journey writes, I think we end up getting Trubisky in free agency, and then I'm praying we take a chance on Willis. Thanks for the content. Thank you for watching and supporting. I think if they had it to do in their dream scenario, they would get one of the big name quarterbacks. But I think plan B for them is Trubisky and Willis, believe it or not. I think that's who they would love to take a chance on. The question is, will they be in a position to even draft Willis? In my mind, if you really want Malik Willis, you're going to have to take him in the first round. I don't think. I told you, I think personally he's a second-round quarterback. That's what I think. But you're not drafting Malik Willis based off of what he is now. You're drafting Malik Willis on what he could potentially be. And for me, that's the difference between a first and a second-round quarterback. If I draft you in the first round, I'm drafting you for what you already are now and what you can be. Meaning, I want some return on my investment now. Not now, right now. I want you to start day one when I draft you in the first round. There's a few exceptions to the rule. Trey Lance last year with the 49ers. Patrick Mahomes with the Chiefs. Those are rare. And they're few and far between. You don't get that very often. When I draft your ass with the first round pick, I expect you to play week 1, year 1. That's the expectation. Now, it doesn't always work out that way. But for the most part, you get drafted in the first round, you're going to play in your rookie season and a hell of a lot of games in your rookie season. When you draft a guy in the second round or later, you're drafting them for what they could potentially be, not what they're going to deliver for you now, because you obviously didn't think they could deliver much for you right now, which is why you didn't spend a first round pick on them. So you're drafting them for what you think they can deliver for you in the future, what he can be. For Willis, a lot of people think he can be a dynamic quarterback down the road. All it takes is one team to decide we think he can do that either now, or we think he can be that dynamic quarterback later down the road, and we're not willing to wait to see somebody else snatch him up, so we're going to go get him right now. All it takes is one team to fall in love with Malik Willis. All the Steelers have to do is continue to fall in love, because the word out on the street was they loved them some Malik Willis at the Senior Bowl, did the Steelers. And all they got to do is go to the combine, see him in person, talk to him some more, fall in love even more. And the Steelers can say, hey, we'll take Malik Willis if he's there at our pick. All it takes is one. So then Washington has to make the decision. Do you pull the trigger at 11 on Malik Willis, or do you wait? These are the questions that I'm putting squarely in the lap of Ron Rivera, Marty Herney, and Martin Mayhew. And I said, this will be the first draft. Last year, I'm going to throw that one out. They all got here last offseason, and they had to hit the ground running. That's hard to do. This year, they've been here a full year. They know the roster. They helped put this roster together. They know the strengths of this roster. They know the weaknesses of this roster. Now I am putting all of the onus on Ron and company. You hired these boys. You know what they're about. You know what you're about. Now, let's see what you are all about collectively as a group. I'm evaluating them on this free agency period, on this draft class, because they've been here long enough to know what they should or shouldn't do, what this roster is or isn't. So this is a big one for Ron and company. They got some big decisions to make. I don't envy them. They got to figure this shit out. This is why they get paid the big bucks, though. Martin Matthews, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Double M, writes, hey, Louie, what's up, Martin? Says, I'm always bringing up speedy wide receivers. I thought Diami was drafted to be a slot, not wide. That being said, who do you think is going to get Jay Williamson and Jay Burks? I don't know. It's really interesting. This receiver class is interesting because so many guys, there are guys that are banged up. The Drake London for USC coming off of an injury. Clearly, the guy that I think would have been the number one receiver in this draft class, Jamison Williams, is coming off of an injury. It's a interesting group of receivers. You could love some guys, you could not love some guys. I think some guys have an opportunity to really assert themselves starting with the combine, right? Because you got a chance to disprove, there may be people questioning your speed, this, that, or the third. You got a chance to go out and run, then you got your pro day. I think this is when we're going to start to see some of these receivers. You got the Wilson kid from Ohio State. I'm not that big on him like that. Like, he's good. I don't think he's elite, we're going to see, both of the Ohio State receivers. I think they're really good. I don't think they're elite. So it's an interesting draft class. We'll see if anybody can really separate themselves, carve out a niche for themselves. But it's really one of those positions. I can't wait to really sink my teeth into the receiver position because, that's my favorite position to evaluate. And I think this is one of those years where I don't think there's a clear-cut number one. Like last year, it was easy. It was Jamar Chase. You know what I mean? The year before that, it wasn't a slam dunk, but there were so many quality receivers. You know what I'm saying? But it wasn't a slam dunk. But there was, Henry Ruggs, and then there was CeeDee Lamb, who I was a CeeDee Lamb fan. But, there was still Jerry Jeudy. There were so many different guys. And then the guy that I thought a lot of people slept on turned out to be the guy that ended up being a stud, and that was Justin Jefferson in that 20 class, excuse me. So there were receivers in that year. This year, I don't know. We got to see. We're going to see. So I don't know. I wish I had a more definitive answer for you, but I don't know, because I don't know where a lot of these receivers end up being slotted at. We'll see. Thank you for the super chat, Martin Matthews. Got another super chat here from Redneck Rocker 01. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, why can't we select two quarterbacks this year, Pickett and Howell? Here's why. Because it's so hard to develop two young quarterbacks at the same time. This is the reason why you don't generally see two young quarterbacks selected at the same time by one team, because it's so hard to split up reps. Remember, you've heard this a million times. During training camp, the number one quarterback is hogging the vast majority of the number one reps, which is the bulk of the reps in the summertime. Now, yeah, there's second team reps and there's third team reps, but those pale in comparison to the reps getting, the number one quarterback is getting. Then once the regular season starts, all of the reps, all of the reps go to the starter. They're not carving out an extra period for that other young quarterback that you happen to take. Okay, the guy that won the competition between the two quarterbacks that you drafted, he's getting all the reps, the other guy's getting none. Period. End of discussion. And so you're one guy's growing, the other guy's having his growth stunted. So you don't want to do that, which is why everyone was shocked when Shanahan took Robert Griffin III and then turned around and took Kirk Cousins, because you generally don't do that. You know what I mean? And it luckily for us, it worked out, but it's rare. And teams don't do that often because it's hard enough to develop one quarterback when you draft a young guy. It's hard enough to do that by itself. You really complicate matters when you take a second young quarterback. And you're not just talking about, like, even when Washington did it, it was the second overall pick in Robert Griffin III, and then it was Kirk Cousins in the mid rounds. It was third or fourth round. I think it was the think Kirk Cousins was a 3rd-round pick. So you're talking about, 1st and 3rd round. And there's a gap there still. You take Pickett and Howell, you're talking 1st and 2nd round. Okay? You're talking back-to-back. Like, that's tough. It's hard enough to develop a 1st-round quarterback or even a 2nd-round quarterback. Now you're trying to develop a 1st and a 2nd-round quarterback. You're putting too much pressure on the coaching staff and in the players too. You're like, because really, in all actuality, I've said this before. Every position on the field, you're looking to cultivate competition. You want competition to permeate your organization, your locker room. You want that to be your rallying cry. We're going to have competition everywhere, so guys don't get comfortable. The one position, and I've said this before and I'll continue to say it, the one position you really, truly do not want competition at is quarterback. You don't want your quarterback looking over his shoulder, okay? You don't want your quarterback thinking, if I make a mistake here, I might get pulled, I might get benched. That's the worst thing you can have for a quarterback, a young one especially, is not knowing. Thinking that I can't make a mistake. I've got to be perfect. You want a guy, unquestioned leader, and nobody else. You draft 2 young quarterbacks, you don't have that. That's part of the reason Robert Griffin III was the way that he was. There was always that complex back of his mind, Kirk Cousins is going to take my job. This is why when he got hurt, he was campaigning to play. Oh, no, I can play. And they're like, sit your ass down, Bob. You're not ready to play yet. Kirk's got it this week. We'll evaluate you next week. And then he comes out after the Browns game and said, I could have played. They didn't let me play. Because he was worried about Kirk Cousins taking his job. You don't want that. So long story short, that's not something that teams do because it's, one, hard enough to develop one young quarterback. It's damn near impossible to develop 2. And secondly, you don't want that guy that you drafted in the 1st round to be looking over his shoulder, having to worry about the 2nd-round quarterback. That's what happened to Carson Wentz. Even though that's not why the Eagles drafted Jalen Hurts, he was strictly an insurance policy. I know why they did it, and I actually agreed with them. Wentz got hurt every year. He'd play well, get hurt close to playoffs time, and Nicholas Foles had to bail them out. Well, they didn't have Nicholas Foles that last year, and so they had to turn to 97-year-old Josh McCown, and he damn near didn't make it through the playoff game because he was so damn old. And they said, enough of this shit. We got to get another guy that when Wentz goes down, this guy can step in. That's why they drafted Jalen Hurts. Not to take Wentz's spot, but Wentz didn't see it that way. He's a human being. And we always worry about somebody else taking our job, especially in football where it's hyper competitive. You struggle a little bit. You're looking over your shoulder. You see the young, new, shiny toy that they drafted back there, and you start to get antsy. That's why you can't draft 2 quarterbacks like that, 1st and 2nd round. Doesn't make any sense. Thank you for the super chat. Redneck Rocker 01. See what we got here. Just Andre. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, I have no clue what they're going to do this draft if it's not QB. Haven't said that in the last 2 drafts. Hope they don't draft need, etc. Davis Payne. I don't mind them drafting need. I just don't want them reaching to do it. For instance, let's say Nakobe Dean, because I'm still not sold that Nakobe Dean is worthy of the 11th pick. I've watched him play. I know the guy's good, but is he fast? Okay, that's at this point, that's what I care about. Is he fast? I don't always see top end speed with Nakobe Dean. Okay. If he is in fact fast, okay, draft him at 11. Because I know he's got the instincts. I know he has a nose for finding the football. I know the guy has the intangibles. Is he fast? If he's fast, okay, draft him. I don't have a problem with that. So then the question becomes, do you want to draft a linebacker 2 years in a row? Did it last year. You're doing it again this year. That's not ideal, right? But it's a need, and it's a big one. If they decide to go with a need at middle linebacker and they think that's one of the better players remaining at 11, I have no problems with that. None. If that guy proves to be athletically gifted enough, because that matters to me, okay? I'm being very shallow when it comes to the linebacker position. Not all positions do you have to be super athletic for me to be like, hey, I love that guy. This is not one of those positions. I'm definitely shallow when it comes to my linebackers in today's NFL. You no longer can be a first and second down, thumper, downhill thumper. Those days are over. I need 3-down dogs that can run sideline to sideline and mollywop somebody that makes a mistake in their area. And if Nakobe Dean is that dude, I'm all on board for him at 11. So, and he would be fitting a need squarely in the middle of our defense. So I wouldn't have a problem with that. But I think you're right on one thing. This is the first draft in a long time where we don't actually know what the team's going to do. I think this is the first draft that we can say that since the Jonathan Allen draft, the Daron Payne draft of 2018, because we knew what we were going to do 19. We knew we were going to take a quarterback in 19. We were hoping it wasn't going to be Dwayne at 15. We were praying it wasn't going to be Daniel Jones at 15, and it turned out to be Dwayne because Jones was gone. But we knew we were going to take a quarterback that year. In 20, we knew we were going to take Chase Young. That was a foregone conclusion. When we got the second pick, we knew what it was. Last year, we knew we were taking a linebacker. We just didn't know which one. I told you guys it was going to be Jamin Davis. I was right. Now we're going to see what he turns out to be. But apparently, he's not a middle linebacker. Go figure. And so now this year, it's like, what do we do? That Daron Payne year, there were options on the board. We could have gone in any number of different directions. We took Daron Payne. It is what it is. I think we're back in that same, window, because I think we were 13th the year we took Daron Payne, if I'm not mistaken. We're right back in that same window at 11. So we'll see what they decide to do. It'll be interesting. Tony P 56, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Lou, what happened to all the COVID cases during the playoffs? Funny how they just disappeared. I'm just saying. Well, remember that the NFL kind of restructured their COVID policies because of, remember that the breakout that affected us kind of opened some eyes, and we weren't the only team. It was us, and it was several other teams that were really ravaged by COVID-19. I don't know if anybody was hit harder than us, though, this past year. But there were a number of teams that were missing guys, and they lost games and were really hurt by COVID. And they weren't going to allow that to happen during the postseason. So what they did was, remember, they made all these different rules that if you were, vaccinated, you didn't have to be tested. And if you, did contract COVID-19, all you had to do was have 2 negatives, and you could play, and things like they made it so that it was pretty much like, look, we're not going to have our playoffs destroyed because of this thing. And so, they changed the rules, and they made it so that the playoffs would go off without a hitch, and it worked. Anyway, I digress. King of the North, greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. My guy, King of the North, writes, Ron changed his tune from build the team, then find the quarterback to we need a damn QB. Getting stomped by Dallas really opened his eyes. LOL. I think what really did it for him was not getting stomped by Dallas twice, although that did not help. I think what changed his tune ultimately was that we regressed as a team. The defense wasn't as good. The offense didn't take that step forward that he was looking for it to take. And in order for that whole narrative to go off without a hitch, you have to actually continue to progress. And so even Buffalo, when they did it, they had Tyrod Taylor. He took them to the playoffs for the first time since the 90s, since 99. And they got Josh Allen. They took a step back, which is normal when you draft a rookie quarterback and he plays right away. But then they saw growth. And so the team that was already there, they could see that all the pieces that they had built and the pieces that they continued to add, they were going in the right direction. They never once took a step back once they got Josh Allen, right? He went from a losing record in his first year, even though there were some games that one on the road against Minnesota was an eye-opener when they destroyed the Vikings that first year with Josh Allen as a rookie. But they go from that season to then 2019, they evolved, right, to a playoff team, to then 2020 making it all the way to the AFC title game, to then last year making it to the divisional round and, having that epic shootout with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. So essentially what I'm saying is when you build it the right way, there are no steps backward. Problem was, not only did we not get the quarterback, we took a step back. And that's a tough, bitter pill to swallow because you thought Chase Young was something and then you realize maybe he isn't what I thought, or he just didn't, develop at the rate that we thought. Montez Sweat, I thought he did some good things, but he didn't take the step that we thought he was going to take either before his injury. The defense as a whole regressed. William Jackson III took a little bit longer. I thought he actually came along as the season wore on, but took him a little while to acclimate himself, right? So you put all these things together, and it was a defense that struggled. That was supposed to be our calling card, the thing we hung our hat on. That struggled, that regressed. The offense, they did all this work to the offense in the offseason, right? You go out, you add De'Ami Brown, you add Adam Humphries, you add Dax Milne, you add DeAndre Carter, you add Ricky Seals-Jones to the tight end position, you add Ryan Fitzpatrick, you add a left tackle in shucks. Why am I blanking on his name? Charles Leno Jr., right? You add Sam Cosmi to the right side. Like all of a sudden, this offense should be made whole all of a sudden. Now, Ryan Fitzpatrick may be the guy that can orchestrate this offense and take it to new heights. Maybe he isn't, but all of these weapons that we've added, this offense, and you add Curtis Samuel. And if I didn't name him, he should have been the first name that I named. And so you add all these weapons to this offense, it's supposed to take off, and it didn't. And I think what all of that said to Ron is, shit, maybe we do need this damn quarterback, and we need him ASAP, because what we've seen in the league is that a quarterback can overcome any shortcomings that you have. Now, you may not be able to win the whole thing, but you get that guy, and you can overcome holes on your roster, being a little short here, or maybe not having enough talent there. You can overcome it because you got that dude at quarterback. And so I think what Ron essentially saw with this team was regression. And the only way to combat that is with a quarterback. That's the thing that's foolproof in this league. It's tried and true, is the quarterback position. You can have a dominant defense one year, and then your defense could fall off the face of the earth next year. We just experienced that. But when you got a legit top-tier, elite-level NFL quarterback, that guy ain't going to just show up one year and stink. If he's that guy, he's going to be that guy for the next 10 years. Josh Allen isn't going to wake up, next year and stink, right? Like that's not what's going to happen with him. Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, these dudes aren't just going to wake up next year and stink. They figured it out. They're going to be good for the next decade. Plus, there are no guarantees with any other position but that one. You get that one right, and you got a chance. And so what Ron saw was, damn, we regressed on defense. The offense didn't take off like we thought it was going to take off. I think we need to get this damn quarterback thing settled, or else we in trouble. And, you know, the thing he never had to deal with in Carolina was the quarterback position. He got there at the exact same time as Cam Newton. They drafted Cam #1 overall. He never had to worry about that position. So this is kind of new territory for Ron Rivera. So we're going to see how he handles it. Just Andre, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Just Andre, greatly appreciate you. My guy, Just Andre, writes, in my opinion, Cam Sims is overrated. He's not a #2 wide receiver. He'll make one big play an entire season. He average. We need a wide receiver badly. 387 was the next highest receiving yards. You preaching to the choir, man. You're not talking to me. You're talking to people that think that Cam Sims can be that guy. Now, to Ron's credit, he's stated that, you know, we need more from the receiver position, but he's also said guys like Cam Sims needed more opportunities. He's not wrong. He's not wrong. But I, like you, think Cam Sims, I won't call him overrated. I don't think anybody's like trying to make Cam Sims out. Like, I think we've established already Cam Sims is not a #2 receiver. I think we did that 2 years ago. He's a quality, you know, third option on a good team. Cam Sims could be a third option. Absolutely. I'll take Cam Sims as a third option, but he's not a 1 or a 2. I think we established that first year where he really started to show out in 2020. That said, I had no problems with Cam Sims being on this roster. If Curtis Samuel is what they thought he was, and Terry continues to be Terry, Cam Sims is fine as a third option. De'Ami Brown continues to develop. We've got enough stuff if that happens in that way. I just personally would like to do something different. I look at Cam Sims and I see a ceiling that's not very high. Like, I kind of know what I'm getting out of Cam Sims. And like I said, he's cool, but you can do so much better. So why not? That's all I'm saying. I'm with you on that. I feel like we need another receiver. But again, keep in mind, Ron and company are counting on Curtis Samuel. Never, ever trust a man with 2 first names to come back like gangbusters, play ball, and do what they thought he was going to do the first year they signed him. So I think they don't feel like they need a receiver as badly as we do. But I would think that receiver would be a bit high on the priorities list this offseason. For me, it was #4. I've gone over my list of offseason priorities. Receiver was 4th. And to me, it could be as high as 3. I don't think it could supersede middle linebacker and quarterback. Thank you for the super chat, Just Andre. Condo P, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My girl, Condoleezza Perry, writes, how confident are you in Juan Castillo's ability to do an adequate job as a tight ends coach with Pete Hainer retiring? Drop a like and a sub. Y'all heard the woman. Drop a like and a sub if you haven't already done so. Greatly appreciate you, and greatly appreciate you, Condo P, for holding the kid down. As far as Juan Castillo's ability to coach, I know he can coach. He's been in this league for a very long time. He's a quality NFL assistant coach, and I have no issues with them adding him to the roster or staff, excuse me, as the tight ends coach. I just think it's a hard act to follow, personally. And, you know, what's going to happen, and I feel for him because unless the tight ends just have this metamorphosis and turn out to be one of the best groups in football, he's going to be blamed for any drop-off at the tight end position, whether it's his fault or not. And if we have drop-off at the tight end position, it may not be his fault. It may just be Logan Thomas coming off of an injury. He's plus 30, you know, on the wrong side of 30. He's coming off of a major knee, you know, surgery. John Bates is at best TE3, and you didn't do enough to address TE2. Ricky Seals-Jones showed you flashes last year, but he also showed you he's injury prone. So Juan Castillo could just walk into a shitstorm. And you know the first thing everybody's going to say is he ain't Pete Hainer. Pete Hainer was making lemonade out of some sour-ass lemons last year. And the year before that. Juan Castillo can coach. I've known him back when he was with the Eagles. Like, I know this dude can coach. The issue is it's almost damned if you do, damned if you don't. If they have some success, I don't know if he'll get all the credit. If they don't succeed, he'll get all the blame. He can coach. I got no issues with it. But Pete Hainer was one of our better positional coaches. I put him right up there with our secondary coach, Chris Harris. Like, those two guys, along with our offensive line coach, were among the best. They were teachers. They are teachers. And they got the most out of guys when we had to tap into depth. They got the most out of those dudes, whether it be tight end, secondary. We had all kinds of dudes stepping in, and we didn't fall apart in the secondary. And you saying could be said at tight end. We were cycling guys in and out. At one point, we had Jay Sternberger waiting. I mean, in the microwave, heating his ass up, ready to pull him out at any moment. He was on standby. We were that thin at tight end. Brought Tamarick Hemingway back like twice. And we still got some kind of production out of the tight end position. So I think Castillo will be fine. I truly do. Thank you for the super chat, Condo P. Barry Curtis Jr. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Same thing could be said for Condo P. I think I said that. I'm not sure. I just want to make sure I did. But Barry Curtis Jr., thank you for being a member of the squad, who writes, the fact that Ron is a defensive-minded coach and our defense looked that bad with all that talent is why his seat is getting hot. Yeah, there's a little bit of validity to that. I think it's more than that, but I think that's a part of it. I don't think that's the sole reason why his seat is getting hot. I think the seat getting hot is perception versus reality. I don't think his seat is hot at all. I think from a fan standpoint, we think the seat is getting hot. Not all of us. I don't think, even if we go 7-10 again this season, I don't think the seat, I think then the seat starts to get warm, especially if you haven't found the quarterback yet. But this notion that the seat is getting hot, I don't think that thing is even lukewarm this year. Ron's fine. I think you're sensing desperation from Ron because he knows he's got to find a guy or else he will get fired eventually. You can't keep being mediocre and think you're going to keep a job. So I think that's why he's aggressively going after a quarterback. But to your point, you know, Ron's this defensive-minded guy and Jack Del Rio's this defensive-minded guy. And those two together have not gotten the production out of this defense that we felt like we should be getting. And I do think that this defense has underachieved, especially last year. Thought they overachieved in Ron's first year. Thought they underachieved last year. And I knew there was going to be a step back because of the quarterbacks we were facing. It was inevitable, right? Unless this defense was truly elite, and we did not have the pieces to be truly elite defensively. Okay. You cannot be an elite defense without a middle linebacker. Go find me one. Go find me a defense that's elite without a middle linebacker. It's just hard to do because that guy usually is the centerpiece of your defense. He's El Capitan. And wherever he goes, the defense goes. You find me an elite defense, I'll show you a dominant middle linebacker 9 times out of 10. We didn't have that. Then you get to the back end, and I'm looking at the safety position, and I'm like, this ain't enough. I love me some Cam Curl. Landon Collins is cool, but this ain't enough. Bobby McCain, this ain't enough. So what we were banking on was that the defensive line with Matt Ioannidis coming back from injury, Cole Holcomb, and Jamin Davis now being added into the mix. We were banking on the front seven collectively wreaking havoc and making this defense either meet expectations or exceed them. And what happened was something that I thought was the most surprising thing of the 2021 season. I still can't really tell you what the hell happened. And that was with the defensive line, in particular, Chase Young and Montez Sweat, but not to lump the two in there, because I think Sweat still had about 5-6 sacks before his season was abruptly ended. It was ended with injury, and then he came back, and then his brother was senselessly murdered, and that was the end of his season. So I think he still put up 6 sacks. I think. Let's look at Montez Sweat's numbers from this season. And Montez Sweat stats. He had 5 sacks this season. So, yeah, he was right there. 5 sacks. I know it was 5 or 6, somewhere in there. And it wasn't what we thought he was going to be. We thought he was going to take that next step. But who's to say that he wasn't going to end up with 10, which would have been a career high for him? He missed probably 6-7 games, with the injury and then his brother being murdered. He probably missed 7-8 games, because I think he missed 4 games, if I'm not mistaken, with the broken jaw. It was either 3 or 4. Then he came back for, I think, a game or 2, and then he missed like the final 3 games of the season. So who's to say that he wouldn't have ended up with 10 sacks? He was on pace to do it. But on the other hand, Chase Young just was non-existent in the pass rush. Like, he was still, dominating in the run, but he wasn't getting after the quarterback. And I think that was the most surprising thing. Matt Ioannidis too. It wasn't just Chase Young. Matt Ioannidis was invisible last season. Like, do you know how much we were talking about Ioannidis? And I can't speak for you. I know I was hyping up Matt Ioannidis. Like, oh my God, like, I'm so excited for him coming back, because he's the best interior pass rusher we have. Dude was non-existent. He might as well have been Daron Payne. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was just shocked. The defensive line as a whole underachieved outside of John Allen. He was a man possessed. Everybody else was just like out there doing their job, but not exceeding, just doing the bare minimum. That was shocking. And to me, as the defensive line goes, this defense goes. And so we were getting destroyed defensively. And I think that was the most surprising part of the season, early on at least. Defense did come around as the season progressed and played better, but they still weren't what we thought they were going to be. And I think a lot of people are holding that against Ron as well. But, it's a number of things. That is included in why a lot of people have been disappointed with Ron to this point. But it's only been 2 years, man. Like, the fact that so many people are down on Ron and don't think he's any good, and Cam carried him in Carolina, this, that, and the third. Well, we'll see. Again, what was the alternative after we finally shed ourselves of Bruce Allen, fired Jay Gruden, got rid of old man Callahan, and we had a vacant job? What was the alternative? What did you guys want to do? Like, Ron Rivera, I think, was the best option available for us at that time. So we'll see where it takes us. All right. Got another super chat here from Johnny Boy 26. Double up. Thank you for the super chat and doubling up, Johnny Boy 26, who writes, I disagree with your Carson take. That's fine. That's what this season is all about. Like, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Okay. Carson's strong. It's not my cup of tea. Mentally, I think he gets it. I think he is probably more advanced than any other quarterback in this year's draft class from a mental standpoint. But That ain't enough to get it done. I know a lot of smart quarterbacks that couldn't cut it in this league. He says, but I would also like for us to draft Garrett Wilson in the second round. He has the makings to be a great wide receiver too. And that's the Ohio State receiver that I was talking about. And I've heard people say, hey, should we take him at 11? Hell no, we shouldn't take him at 11. But and so Johnny Boy is like, no, not 11 in the second round. And I don't know if he'll be there at our pick in the second round. He may not be. He's one of these guys that has a chance to make some money during, the rest of this draft season, combine and pro days. He got a chance to make himself some money and move up some draft boards. But I myself wouldn't take him in the first round with 11. Not to say that I wouldn't take him at all in the first round, but not with 11. But Johnny Boy is like, yo, no, I take him in the second round. Both of those Ohio State receivers look like number 2 wide receivers to me. Neither one of them look like number 1s. And that's okay. That's okay. Thank you for the super chat. Johnny Boy, 26. 1/6, Double Doc. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Lou, we should move on from Collins and move Curl to safety, strong safety, and sign the free agent safety from Cincy or New Orleans. I don't think that the Bengals are going to allow Jesse Bates to leave. They'd be foolish to do that. But I'm intrigued by Jesse Bates. Third, you know that. Marcus Williams is intriguing as well. Here's the problem. I've already said this. You've invested quite a bit of coin in that secondary already. Now, you've already said cut Landon Collins. And one of my excuses, because that's what it's been, is an excuse, why you wouldn't spend on another safety is because you're already spending money on Landon Collins. But if you cut Landon Collins, you're saving some money. You could theoretically take some of the savings and spend that on a new safety. True, but you're spending money on Kendall Fuller, who's a free agent corner. You're spending money on William Jackson III, who's a free agent corner. And so you've got money tied up. Not a ton. I think William Jackson's 13 a year. I think Kendall Fuller's 10 a year. But do you want to spend, because those 2 safeties that you just mentioned aren't going to be cheap. Those are top of the market safeties. Okay. So, you're probably talking $14, $15, $16 million a year when you're talking about those guys, because they're top end of the safety market type of guys. So are you willing to invest that kind of money at the safety position, knowing that if you truly love Cam Curl as much as you say you do, he's going to look around and say, hey, where's my bread? Again, these are the things you got to take into consideration when you're signing guys. That and those guys are young. Tyrann Mathieu is available, and if they decided to go with a veteran like that because they think they need a veteran presence on that defense to lead these young boys, you could pay him some good money, but it would be short. It'd be like a 2-year deal, right? It wouldn't be a 4-year deal. I don't see them investing like that in the safety position. I think they would rather draft a young boy and spend that money elsewhere. But I could be wrong. I would have no issues. You know how I feel about the safety position. I think we left a lot of meat on the bone last year at free safety, and I would love nothing more than to fill it with one of those ball hawking free safeties like Marcus Williams and Jesse Bates III. I love nothing more than to do that. But again, if they decided to go economically sound and get another young boy in the draft, I had no problems with that either. Just make sure you get it right. So we'll see what happens. Washington football fan, WGIL. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, sup, Lou? Sup? Says, once again, I am in need of a new screen name. Help. I honestly don't know what to tell you. This is why I wasn't a fan of like redoing branding what I was doing, I kind of just left everything status quo. Like I didn't change too much because I'm like, they're going to change it again. So, I mean, I don't know. Find a name that suits you. How about the command center or something like that? Or the command controls, something like that. I don't know. Just throwing darts at the board, man. Hoodie Quays, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, George Pickens is what Terry needs, Louie. Second round receiver from Georgia. I need him to stay healthy. That's number one. Number two, I always felt like there was a lot of untapped potential in George Pickens. I really, really find myself struggling with guys like that coming from the collegiate ranks, where you were this highly touted, receiver that was supposed to change the game. And then when you leave, it doesn't feel like you've accomplished all that much. And you definitely didn't live up to the hype of what you were coming in as a recruit. Kind of feel that way about George Pickens, but he could end up being really good. Another thing I struggle with him is I don't see a lot of separation. And I'm going to watch more tape on him. But he was a guy that I never felt like got a lot of true separation. A lot of contested catches for him. And then there were a lot of catches that were contested that he didn't come down with. He's got some talent, though. That is for sure. And he's big. I want a big wide receiver. So he checks off a number of boxes. But he'll be a guy that I'll hone in on during this offseason and see if I truly do like his upside or not. Because that's what it all boils down to is, yeah, he may not have done it in college, but the talent's still there. It still exists. But if you can't separate, or there isn't one redeeming quality or trait that stands above the rest that will allow you to have a long NFL career, then I can't do it. So I got to see if there's something there with him. Just Andre, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Just Andre writes, if Dean runs a 4.52, would you take him at 11? Yes. Yes, I would. 4.52 is plenty fast. Like, let's not kid ourselves. All right, it's a lot of middle linebackers that aren't running 4.52 that are dominating. Okay. I can tell you for sure right now, and I don't know this off the top of my head. I guarantee you that Darius Leonard didn't run a 4.52. I guarantee you that the San Francisco 49ers middle linebacker out of BYU, Fred Warner, did not run a 4.52. Those are two of the best middle linebackers in football right now. As a matter of fact, we don't have to guess. Let's look it up. Fred Warner 40 time. Fred Warner ran a 4.64 40-yard dash. Darius Leonard 40 time. Darius Leonard ran a 4.7 40. Okay. You don't have to be a blazer. I want a blazer. 4.52 is a blazer at the linebacker position. It's not Micah Parsons, but then again, who is, right? 4.52 would be plenty fast. If he runs 4.5 anything, sign me up. If he runs 4.6, I don't know. Because I don't know if he's Fred Warner. I didn't see Fred Warner. I didn't see Darius Leonard in him, even though, he's a tackling machine. That's why I need to see the speed. I need to know it exists. I need to know it's there. And if he does that, then I'll change my tune and I'll tell you, yeah, hell yes, sign me up. Let's see. Got a super chat here from DC Fan 88. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. DC Fan 88 writes, "Sup, Lou? I think we should draft Sam Howell and sign a middle of the road guy. I think he'll be ready next year. What are your thoughts?" I mean, I wouldn't have any problems with them drafting Sam Howell in the second round. And if they decided to double back and trade back up into the first or trade up in the second round to procure his services, sure, knock yourself out. I can't definitively say any of these quarterbacks are the answer. That includes Sam Howell, but I'd be willing to, take a flyer on Sam Howell in the second and see what he's got. They're going to get one of these stopgap quarterbacks. That's going to happen, whether you want it to or not, unless they trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. And I think he's the equivalent of one of these stopgap quarterbacks. Okay, I don't see Jimmy Garoppolo being the answer, and I pray that they don't either. And the thing that gives me hope with the whole Jimmy Garoppolo thing is that Ron has long said and continues to repeat this like a broken record, that he wants a mobile quarterback, a guy that can move. That's not Jimmy Garoppolo. So for me, I'm holding on to that extremely tight. And I'm like, Ron, you said you wanted a mobile quarterback. Jimmy's not that. So if I'm drawing inferences correctly, he shouldn't be on your radar. That's what I'm telling myself to make me feel better and allow me to sleep at night. I could be wrong. And Ron could be salivating over the prospects of getting his hands on Jimmy Garoppolo. Him and the young Turner over there, Scott. I'm hoping that those boys are like, nah, we good. I can't fool with Jimmy. Jimmy's fool's gold. But we're going to end up with one of these middle-of-the-road quarterbacks. That's a given, to go along with Taylor Heineke as the two veterans, and then we're going to draft a rookie quarterback. So we'll see how it goes. All right. Tony P56. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Tony P56 writes, any thoughts on Akil Glass from Alabama A&M? I know it's an HBCU and not talked about much, but I'm curious to hear your take. I haven't watched any of the receivers yet. Or I haven't, first of all, I don't even know what position dude plays. I can't sit here and act like I know who the hell he is. I don't. So if he's any good, he'll show up on the radar and I'll do my due diligence and I'll be able to talk to you about him. But here's the thing. What I've learned over the years doing the draft, right? Every year, people want to discover someone. They want to be able to say, hey, I was on this guy when nobody was on him. It's not that dissimilar to, listening to some kind of an artist, whether it's R&B or hip hop, someone that is, not as much in the limelight, not getting that acclaim that you think they deserve. And you've been on them since day one. You know what I mean? You've been on them since they were on SoundCloud. And they trying to come up and you see them and you're like, yo, this dude dope, I'm telling you. And then they finally get to that point where you want them to get to. And then it seemed like shit changes. You know what I'm saying? And the music isn't the same. And they chasing hits, things of that nature. It happens, right? But what I've learned is that every dude from a small school can't be nice. Or every dude in the draft can't be a sleeper. Some dudes are sleepers because they're supposed to be slept on. Give me the covers. Leave my pillow alone. I'm going back to sleep. So I don't know who this guy is. And I'm not saying he's not worthy of my time. But what I've learned is you can't go chasing down. Now, if I hear his name multiple times or somebody that I trust says, hey, have you checked out Akil Glass from Alabama A&M? And I go, no, I ain't heard of him. Who is he? And they say, yo, you got to check him out, man. This is a 6'3", 207-pound receiver doing these boys. All right, I'm going to check him out. If it's somebody I trust or I hear his name multiple times, okay, I'm going to go do my due diligence. But I can't tell you how many times over the years people have been like, yo, I'm telling you, this dude is nice. I got people sending me highlight tapes and highlight reels of this dude because, everybody's got one on YouTube. And the title reads, "The most slept on running back in the nation." And it'll be Adrian Killins from where did he go? Oh, shucks. He went to that Florida school. The same school Gabe Davis went to. UCF, Central Florida. Small little running back, fast as shit. The most dynamic player you haven't heard of or in the nation. And it'd be 5 minutes of him, big ass runs. Don't get drafted. Not in the league. These guys happen all the time. So I didn't mean to go on this long ass War and Peace diatribe. Okay. The point I'm trying to make is I don't know Akil Glass, and I don't think that I'm not going to dismiss him because he could be nice and he could be one of these small school guys that ultimately makes it in the league and tears shit up. But every year, people think they've discovered this hidden gem. Everybody wants to be that guy to say, I was on him first. Oh, you just got on that? Man, I've been on that 3 years ago. That's how I used to be with her. I was on her when nobody was listening to her. And then she took off. And I'm not going to lie, her shit don't sound the same. But when somebody would come to me and they talking about Focus, and I'm like, yo, I was listening to Focus last year. You just getting on to her? Or LMA? Like, you just getting to LMA? I've been listening to LMA 2 years ago. That song you listening to, Boot Up, I was listening to that last year, a year and a half ago. That shit just hit the radio. You just figuring out who else, because everybody wants to be able to say, man, you just getting on that? I've been on that. And I don't know if that's what you're doing with this dude here, Akil Glass. He might be nice. And like I said, if he's nice, he'll come up in my studies and I'll check him out. But every year, there's at least 30 dudes from 30 different people that, hey, this dude is nice. You got to check this dude out. From some school way out in the boonies. And that's not what I'm saying about Alabama A&M, because I rep the HBCUs hard. Want to see those boys win, right? But every year we get these guys, these names that get thrown out. They either don't get drafted, the late round draft picks, they don't make squads, this, that, and the third. Nobody will ever kill you for bringing up a random dude nobody's ever heard of. That's why people do it. There's no repercussions. There's no downside to bringing up a random dude. There's only upside. If you get it right, I told you. If that guy doesn't get drafted, never plays a snap in the NFL, I'm not going to come back and say, what about the dude you tried to put me on? No, I'm not going to do that. So there's no downside to doing that. But I said all of that to say this. Haven't heard of the dude. Don't know who he is. But if he's any good, I'll run across him during my Draft Prospects 101 series. Not necessarily doing a video on him, but I'll run across him in my studies. It always happens. So we'll see. Thank you for the super chat, Tony P56. Jason Files, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Jason Files writes, what up, Lou? What up, Jay? My guy Jay says, would you take Wentz over Jimmy G? Which position is deeper, a linebacker or cornerback of the draft? Cornerback is first, Fuller to free safety. Would I take Wentz over Jimmy G? I would take neither of those boys. But I mean, if you put a gun to my head and say, hey, you got to choose one, put on the trigger. I probably would take Jimmy G because I think Carson Wentz is a head case. I think something's off there. I think he lacks the confidence that you need at the quarterback position. I think for some reason, I can't say this with 100% certainty. I haven't heard this in Indianapolis, but for some reason, he just doesn't seem to sit well with guys in the locker room. And this would be the second organization that was willing to eat money to get rid of him in consecutive years. There are red flags everywhere with Wentz, even though he's super talented. I'd have to pass on him. So if you force me to, I'd take Jimmy G. I don't want to take either of these guys. But if you put a gun to my head and I had to make a choice, I'd take Jimmy G. That said, deeper position in this year's draft, linebacker or corner, it's definitely cornerback if you ask me. I think linebacker is top heavy. There are always gems in the middle of a draft at the linebacker position. You just got to be able to sort through all of the wreckage to find it. I thought last year's draft at linebacker was pretty deep. You know, I was talking about guys that I thought you could get in the second round, which ultimately were drafted in the second round that ended up being really good. You know, I keep talking about the Missouri linebacker that the Chiefs got because I was like, that's the guy. I'm telling you, that's the guy we need to draft. But that's nor here nor there. I think cornerback's the deeper position in this year's draft class. It's got top tier talent, and then I think there are solid players throughout to fill it out that gives it good body overall. But I don't think the linebacker position is like it was that year where it was the two Devons, and then after that it fell off of a cliff. I think there are some good linebackers in this year's draft class. You just got to find them. So, and then Fuller to safety, I don't think they're interested in moving him to free safety. That's just my personal opinion. We'll see what happens. I don't see them doing that. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me. That's the last super chat that I have. Really do appreciate you guys chopping it up with me tonight. Next week, we will start talking about free agency, and I will have a list of free agents from the offensive side, and then we'll do the defensive side the following week. We won't do it all in one sitting because we have enough time. So we'll take a look at some notable free agents on the offensive side of the football. We'll then turn our attention to the defensive side, and that will pretty much slam us right into free agency, and we'll hit the ground running. All the while, we'll be doing draft prospect one-on-one breakdowns. I'm going to the edge rushers next, and then we'll just let the spirit move us in whatever direction we need to go to after that. Some interesting, guys in this draft at edge rusher. It's probably the deepest position in this year's draft class. And there's some really good football players. We'll see. And as we continue to break those down, that should be a lot of fun. And then we'll transition our way through as many positions as we can get through. The combine is next week. So, there'll be a brief pause and because of that. But we'll see. I don't know. I always tell you I watch the combine so you don't have to. I don't know if I even want to watch the combine. But it's a long-standing tradition here on the Louie T Network, so I may uphold it, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, I digress. You guys have a good one. I am a Washington fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Washington spirit will never die. Washington spirit will never fold. Until next time, you guys take command. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. You guys stay legit, 10 toes down. I'll see you next time. Looking forward to chopping it up with you guys next week. I'll be out of the office over the weekend. I think after this, there'll be some level of normalcy coming. But it's been hectic these last 3 weeks. But you know how it is. After the Super Bowl, shit is what it is. At the end of the day, the content will continue to come. So be on the lookout for some Draft Prospects 101. If you're a member of the MOBB or Patreon, your exclusive content is coming right around the corner as well. So be on the lookout for that. Until next time, you guys take care. Enjoy the rest of your evening. God bless and good night.